Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome one and all to a Tuesday matinee edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Russell Dobular, of course.
Hola, mis amigos.
Don't say that too loud. Remember,
I know they might start banging down my door here.
I know. You look like they could probably get a cool 1,200 for you.
Sure. Yeah.
Those
go to the east side of Harlem. ICE is probably there right now.
They're probably there right now. Yeah. Newark to Harlem. There you have it. So, folks, we want to thank you all for being here very, very much. We got a great crowd here to start things off. 597 strong in the YouTube chat. 551 over on Rumble. Smash that like button. Let's get a big crowd in here today. We have a lot to get to. And we have a very special guest who's joining us for our first segment, so we are going to jump right in. So I want to introduce you, folks, to this case here from the Michigan Daily. This is from November of last year. Why is it so essential that I die in here? What I learned visiting ninja killer Temujin Kensu in prison. He's innocent. And this was an article in the Michigan Daily by Liam Rapley. I'm going to read a couple paragraphs to set this up. Have you ever been to prison? Temujin Kensu has. In fact, he's been in prison for nearly twice my lifetime, 37 years. This was a young man who wrote this. Kensu is currently serving a life sentence he received after being convicted of the murder of 21-year-old Scott Macklem in 1987. This is usually how things go in the American justice system. If you murder somebody and it's proven in court that you really did it, you go to prison for a while, sometimes for your whole life. This is what has happened to Temujin Kensu. There's just one small problem. Kensu was more than 400 miles away from the scene of the crime when Scott Macklem was murdered in 1986. For 37 years, he has maintained his innocence. An amalgamation of politicians, police officers, judges, record producers, journalists, and private investigators, all of various political affiliations, have publicly called for his freedom. That freedom is yet to come. And a citizen journalist and peer of ours and friend of ours who's been covering this case for a very long time and who just recently actually made a trip to Michigan and was granted a jailhouse interview with Temujin himself is our friend. You all know who she is. Savage Joy Marie-Mann. Joy, thanks for joining us.
Joy.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me. This is incredibly important, and outside of the true crime space, it's just not really talked about.
Well, this is kind of, a beat of ours, the sort of anti-carceral beat. We've done certain stories like this. There's a big anti-incarceration rally in Albany, New York, coming up on a Tuesday, February 4th, which is a week from today, which I'll be at. I will be covering that on the ground. So any dissidents in the New York area want to come say hello, that's where I'll be at the state capitol on February 4th. Because the abuses of the justice system is something that, Russ and I both feel very, very strongly about. And this case fits in perfectly to that theme, obviously. It fits in all too well. So why don't you explain the case of Temujin Kensu, who he is and what this case is, and just how outrageous the guilty verdict was.
So it's very it's insane. I tell him quite often, if it was a movie, it would be like a slapstick comedy, because nobody would believe any of this. It's way too bananas. So essentially, November 5th, 1986, Temujin Kensu, prior Fred Freeman, yes, free man, irony.
Right.
So he was 438 miles away when a young college student, Scott Macklem, was killed at his community college. He was shot one time in the side. Temujin has never met Scott. Scott was the son of a mayor. So with that, there was pressure to absolutely get this case closed. Temujin had a falling out with a girl he dated a few times. She told the police it was probably him. They never heard anything about this guy, Temujin. Who the hell is that? She recommended it may be her and him, and that's how all this unfolded. So yeah, the first thing, he's 438 miles away. Case closed, right? He has over a dozen witnesses, 9 of them unimpeachable, who testified at court. And so
they testified at court, just to be clear, they testified at court that he was more than 400 miles away from the scene of the crime, within hours of the crime.
Correct. And he has receipts because his car was broken down. So he has a receipt. He was going to get his car fixed at Kmart. He has a receipt from a diner. He has receipts showing he was there for months, but even the whole 24 hours, before, during, and after the killing. So at this point, even though he was far away, they did not have any other suspects because they didn't really try. The killing, there was never a gun found. The only proof that was found was there were fingerprints on a shotgun shell case. They did not match Temujin. And they didn't search for who they matched. So that just helped their case, blaming Temujin for this killing. There has never been any proof he has ever known Scott. He didn't even live in the town this happened in. And then as far as their case, since he was so far away, they had to come up with theories. Well, how did he get there? Because look, double-digit witnesses know he was 438 miles away in a blizzard. So the first theory was that he teleported. That was the first theory. Yes. Literally.
Like Star Trek?
Yeah. Then when that didn't fly, they're like, okay, he must have hired a private plane in a closed airport that was small, that, it was one of those little dinky airports that's more like a mom and pop. And it was closed because of the blizzard. Apparently he walked up there, even though he was on welfare. He paid some random pilot to fly him the 438 miles. This is 1986. There are no cell phones. There is no internet. But apparently somehow he magically got a car in the field that the plane landed in. And that's how he drove a car to the community college to shoot Scott. Then he had the car and he brought that back to the field where he got back in the plane. And yeah, that's no pilot, no plane, no flight log. Nothing.
Now, I have to pause you for a second because this sounds, I would not blame the audience for thinking this is absolutely too crazy to be true, but it is. We're going to get more detail on this later, but this is a recent article from last year. Aviation experts dispute plane theory used to convict Michigan's ninja killer. Not to jump the gun on that, but I feel like I have to show you an NBC News headline so that you don't think in the audience that you're getting punked in this interview, because that's literally what they floated, that he must have chartered a plane to go and kill this guy and get back to his alibi, which was over 400 miles away, in time for witnesses to then say he wasn't where he could have been, where he had to have been, were he guilty. That's actually what they went with.
Accurate. And then when they picked up Temujin, his girlfriend was 7 months pregnant. They went to, when Temujin was out, just to go back a little, he called the police because he heard that his best friend was killed and that he was wanted for that murder. This was before the internet. So he's calling around, what the heck happened to my friend? Why am I wanted? He ends up starting to drive the 438 miles back to say, what's going on with my friend? He stops, he calls the police. They say, we don't know who you are. You're not wanted with us. We have no idea what you're talking about. So he goes to drive back home, and he finds out that these 7 cops are in his house with his 7-month pregnant girlfriend, trashing the place, warrantless, trying to find something that they could possibly use to connect Temujin. Now, in a blizzard, literally below freezing, his 7-month pregnant girlfriend is told, no, you can't put on a jacket, you can't put on shoes, you need to get outside right now. They stick her in the back of a police car in a blizzard, no heat, have her out there for hours. The search was 7 hours. They found absolutely nothing. So then they do not question Temujin. They do not interrogate Temujin. They simply take him and lock him up. They also do not question or interrogate his pregnant girlfriend, Shelley. They don't do any of that. They just presumption, you're guilty. You're getting locked up. You don't have a right to, defend yourself or say where you were or anything. You are going to jail. And they put him in solitary. And all the while, he's racking his brain. What's going on? They say you're you're under arrest for murdering Scott. And he's like, who the hell is Scott? He literally has no idea who the hell they're talking about. And then it leads to the most insanely corrupt trial. I don't know if you want me to get into that.
Yeah, let's get to that in a moment, because I want to first, you have a couple of big announcements to make. And the first is that, vis-a-vis the audio recording. Do you want to set that up? Because we have about 3 minutes of your recent interview with him, where he talks in detail about how he was under the impression that a former friend of his had been killed, which is what brought him back home, so to speak. So do you want to set this up?
Yeah, so one of the big announcements I have is that because for those who don't know, I'm 85% blind. And because of that, I had to, doing this with the prison was even setting up phone calls with him. I've been interviewing him from prison for almost 5 years, but setting this up so that I could fly out to Michigan from Pennsylvania and interview him in person in prison was just like, it's like a months-long thing and everything. And also because I have equipment. I can't really read or write because I just can't see what I write. So I do things as transcripts. I record and download transcripts and then enlarge and use my devices and such. So I had to go through all this stuff to get them to allow me to bring a recorder. And then when I got there, it took over a half an hour to in, even though I had the warden's approval and everything at that point. Well, anyway, so I get in. Now, when I first find out that I'm allowed to bring this in, I genuinely was thinking about a transcript. That's what I was thinking. And then I was like, okay, well, he's been in here almost 4 decades. Nobody has ever been able to interview this man on audio or video. It's against policy. So I am literally the only person who has ever been able to interview this man in prison. And I'm like, I gotta do more than just do the transcript, because this is huge. Like, this is, and I was terrified that when I left, they were gonna be like, you know what? No, you can't share this. You need to sign this. They said nothing. So it's mine. I can do what I want with it. So I have over 4 hours of recording with him from prison, and it's remarkable. I still can't believe it. So yeah.
All right, so we're going to take a listen. This is 3 minutes. So this is Temujin in his own words describing the mix-up that brought him within reach of the law, shall we say, and then we'll get to the trial, which is even more insane in a lot of ways after this. So this is about 3 minutes.
Start the initial investigation. Scott Macklem was shot once in the side.
Correct.
On November 5th, 1986. In a community college parking lot. Have you ever met Scott Macklem?
No. And I passed on polygraphs too. And I've never been at the college either. To this day, still don't know where the college is. Remember, I lived way out in Jeddah, so I don't know this town. I never hung out in this area. The only place I ever went to was the Grove Mall, which is right there by the expressway exit.
Where were you specifically on November 5th, 1986?
At the exact time of the murder, 8:55 a.m., I was in bed with Michelle Woodworth in our home in Rock, Michigan, which is a little farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere.
And how far is that from the community college?
Almost 500 miles. I think it's like 424 to Port Huron. Remember, the roads were different. The bridge, the Zilwaukee Bridge was different back then, and the speed limit was 55. And then Rock is another 30, 40 miles from town.
And the biggest mix-up in the history of mix-ups, you were told that your buddy, Tom Ford, was dead.
Yeah, so what happened was I went to Paul DeMar's house in the morning on Sunday. He was making us breakfast. So the phone rings, and it's Dad. She's like, hey, Paul, have you seen Mick? If you see Mick, I got to talk to him. He goes, well, he's right here. And he goes, oh, my God, what, he's in town? He goes, yeah, he's right here right now. We're having pancakes. And he goes, let me talk to him. So he goes, like, Mick, man, listen, I got to talk to you. He said, I just talked to Mike Olson, man. Mike Olson's dad said that Tom Ford's dead, and they think you killed him. And Tom and I had a falling out. He had stolen from me, and all I could think was, wow, people know that Tom stole from me. Something bad happened to Tom. They must think that I got even with him or something. That's all I could picture,
So this is a different guy who they told him was dead. This is not the victim of the murder that he's doing time for. Right.
But I instantly believed Tom really was dead. I knew that Mike Olson's dad, Gary, was like a local probation officer or something. He was connected.
So he didn't say how he was dead?
No, just said Tom was dead, and they thought that I killed him. And I said, I got to find out what happened. I got to find out what's going on. Why do they think that I did this, And I was up here. I don't know what day he's supposed to have been killed on, so it's not like I'm putting together an alibi. I called Tom's family. They will not tell me anything, and I've known them since I was a baby. You know what they said to me on the phone? Fred, we're not allowed to tell you anything. We're not allowed to talk to you, and they hung up on me. But anyways, I pack a bag, and I tell Shelly I'm going to go down. I'm going to find out what's going on. Deanna, the girl that I was arrested with, also knew Tom. She'd had a intimate relationship with Tom at one point. And I went down and I got her, and I said, Tom's dead, and they think that I killed him, and nobody will tell me anything. You'll see a log of calls, me calling the Flint Police Department, because that's where Tom and I are from. And they're telling me they don't have any John Does. And I at one point, I tell this Detective Sergeant Ahert, you're trying to trick me. And he's like, listen, if I was trying to trick you, I'd try to trick you into coming in. I wouldn't say I don't want you, I'm not looking for you. And I was like, okay, that actually makes sense. And I was like, what the hell's going on? I go back and I tell Deanna all of this. I take her out to dinner. I call to check on Shelly. A man answers the phone. It's John Bounds. He's in my house without a warrant. And there's like 7 officers destroying my place and tearing through everything. 7-hour warrantless search. They found absolutely nothing.
Okay. So that's 3 minutes of 4 hours of audio that you have. Then at trial, let's talk about who his lawyer was.
So his lawyer was given to him by some people who were some of the corrupt people who the reasons that he's in prison. And his name is David Dean. He was on probation at the time he was representing Temujin. public defender. He was using crack cocaine heavily during the entire trial. And this was known by people. It also ended up that the prosecutor had actually lost his job because he had ties to the mob. Like, I'm not even kidding you. And then David Dean, who was Temujin's lawyer, was the one that got the prosecutor off the hook and got him this job as a prosecutor. He had never prosecuted any murder trials ever, but got this job. So that's a conflict of interest right there. You're going against a prosecutor who you have previously represented and gotten that job. So that was the first thing that's just like, okay, this is great. But it's, you know, as you guys know, when you're poor and you have no resources, you are given a public defender, and it doesn't matter if they are a known crackhead. It doesn't matter. That's what you're given. So
the whole thing seems like a setup, because we see this pattern a lot too. Whereas when there is a case that the state is under pressure to solve, in this case, the victim was a politically connected person, letting the case go unsolved is not an option, right? And so they just have to find someone who they can pin it on, and then from there, let's set him up with the most dysfunctional lawyer possible, because 9 witnesses place the defendant more than 400 miles away from the crime within hours of the crime.
Right. Absolutely. And, you know, then the craziness starts. You have Temujin. This was, I don't know if you guys or your listeners know this. Back in the 80s, there was this satanic panic. Like West Memphis 3, you know, the satanic, you know, panic, long hair, you know, rock and roll, leather jacket, you know, all these things. And this was very shocking to people on the jury. You know, so he, you know, they're describing this man, he's a ninja killer, you know, oh my God, he's, you know, he has throwing stars coming out of his shoes, and all of these things are happening. He can, you know, like I said, he can teleport, he can jump from trees, you name it. And so all of this stuff is being said. Now, reminder, Scott was shot once in the side with a gun. So the prosecution brings in a huge cafeteria table, sticks it right in front of the jury, and says, okay, lays out swords and porn and nunchucks and all this stuff, and just says, oh, this is so disgusting and stuff like that during the trial. And it has nothing to do with Temujin. It's not his stuff. It's not even his stuff. And it's not relevant because it's not how Scott was killed. So that was the first thing.
Like this almost sounds like I mean, it's horrible what actually happened. It's like a Farrelly Brothers comedy about incompetent lawyers. And think, isn't this terrible? Nunchucks.
It's funny. Yeah, I thought of the Farrelly Brothers as well. Yeah, it's that just absurd.
Absolutely. So there's that. And that's already like, you know, the jurors are like, oh my God, he listens to like, you know, freaking like hair bands and rides a motorcycle. Oh my God, he's a Satanist. He's a ninja killer. And they play on that and it works. Then you have a jailhouse snitch who stated on the stand he was not given any kind of, you know, rewards for saying what he said on the stand. The judge interjected when they were asked if he had any kind of rewards for testifying. The judge said, no, he doesn't. And it turns out he did, and the judge's signature was all over the form giving him special treatment because of confessing. His name was Philip Joplin. Well, Philip Joplin later starts dying of cancer and comes clean and said, I lied. I never had that conversation with Temujin. When I talked to him, he told me he was innocent. So,
right, so he lied and said that Temujin had confessed to him that he did it, and then he later said that he lied about that. Yeah,
exactly. That alone should be a new trial. The fact that your lawyer gets disbarred because they're a cokehead should be a new trial. I mean,
well, to me, the motive, I mean, in what I've read about this, I didn't know that the victim was the son of a mayor. That's what puts it all together for me. That's what means, because that gives the state a motive to get the case solved, right? And I read in one of the articles I read about this, because they have made recent appeals to Gretchen Whitmer, the governor, the good Democrat governor of Michigan, to commute his sentence. And we've heard from the state of Michigan that he is still the most plausible suspect. Well, most plausible suspect means nothing. You have to be guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. What do you mean he's the most plausible suspect? That's like saying, people can't fly, but Michael Jordan can jump real high, so he's the most plausible human who could ever fly because he could jump high. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's an absurd thing to say. Which brings me to this, because I do want to get into this, because Gretchen Whitmer is the governor now, and this is a state case, so she has the power to commute his sentence. This doesn't have to be Trump or Biden in the past, right? She can do this. So aviation experts dispute plane theory used to convict Michigan's ninja killer. 3 aviation experts have written letters to Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer in support of a bid for clemency by a state prisoner nicknamed the Ninja Killer, who has been fighting to overturn his murder conviction for more than 30 years. The letters, which were delivered to Whitmer's office by Temujin Kensu's legal team on December 5th, cast doubt on the sensational theory presented at trial that the then 23-year-old could have chartered a private plane to fly him from one end of the state to the other, shot the victim, and returned home without leaving a trace. Just have to remind people, this is NBC News. This is NBC News.
It's so absurd on the face of it.
Yeah, like you can't even believe what you're
reading.
reading.
The idea that you got a jury to convict,
right,
on this,
and their main reasoning was because of the plane theory. That's what they said. This was, he was far away, but the plane, they actually had a pilot testify at court, and it turns out that it was the prosecutor's private pilot.
Yes, the prosecutor's private pilot testified as an expert witness about how he could have flown back there in a blizzard on a private plane. It's so improbable, it's unbelievable, said Harvey Setter, 82, who wrote one of the letters. Setter, now retired, managed the Delta County Airport in Escanaba, Michigan, between 1982 and 1999. The 2 other letters were written by the former owner of an airport service station and a commercial pilot who both offered a similar assessment to Setter's based on their knowledge of local airports connected to the case and past experience with the key witness behind the plane theory. The men say they were not previously contacted by authorities. So, I mean, again, you can't even believe you're reading an NBC article when you talk about that. And you have Gretchen Whitmer there, who has this on her desk, right? I mean, it is in her power, yes, to set this man free. You told me, Joy, her own father wants her to set this man free, right?
He does.
Yeah. So Gretchen Whitmer's own father and staff. Okay. Well, that you didn't tell me. She hasn't done it. She I mean, it's just incredible to me. I mean, it's not incredible. This is what the Democrats do. But you'd think this is what absolute
Jordan
cowards
in his book
they are.
gets into that with Whitmer. That actually the Republican appointed special prosecutor was pretty close to bringing criminal charges and putting together a RICO case against the people responsible for Flint. And it was Whitmer, when she came in, who dismantled that whole process.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, she has had his clemency report on her desk for 6 years since she took office. literally a signature would get him out. He is 61 years old. He has been in prison 2/3 of his life, almost 40 years. And we don't really want clemency, so to speak. We want him to be pardoned because he's innocent. We want him out, and he's cool with clemency, but she also has the ability to just give him a pardon and say, you know what? And she's talking about running for the White House in 2028. So
no, she's just an absolutely wretched person. I mean, just a totally horrible person. And the cowardice, I mean, it's so cowardly because I would imagine the only reason she is hesitant to do it or reluctant to do it, unwilling to do it, is because she thinks there is some sort of like political price to pay. This is how just back on their heels Democrats are about issues of crime, is that they're so terrified to look like they're soft on crime that they will keep a clearly, I mean, this is a comical case if it weren't so tragic, a clearly a wrongful conviction. They can overturn that basically. They can grant clemency or pardon, or, they can, in essence, undo the consequences of it by setting him free, and she won't do it. It must be because she's afraid there's a political price, which, think of the contempt you have to have for the public to think that there's a political price to pay for freeing this man. Anybody who looks at this case for 3 minutes can tell that he should have never been sent to prison in the first place.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
not even
is
a
that where
matter
she's
of
coming from?
opinion, And Whitmer herself and the DA, Dana Nessel, have never once in these 6 years said the words, Temujin Kensu is guilty. Temujin Kensu had something to do with it. Temujin Kensu is a murderer. Temujin Kensu is a killer. They have never said that once. They know he's innocent.
Yeah. I mean, it is a remarkable case, and I want you to
Nessel is the one who destroyed the Flint prosecutions.
Yep. Absolutely. And she started the CIU, which is supposed to be looking into wrongful convictions. That's what she ran on. Temujin's wife, Paula, even campaigned for her because she said, you know what? It's going to be the first case I work on is Temujin. And he should get out. I mean, this just doesn't make sense. She got elected and he's still in there.
That's amazing. Well, while we have a couple minutes left, I do want you to get your second big announcement in. So why don't you do that?
So I have been with the blessing of Temujin and his incredible wife, Paula. I have been writing a book about this insanity, and it is actually going up for pre-order in 2 weeks. And you can actually read the entire transcript of our 4-hour conversation in prison, but there's also a lot of other stuff in there from just my experiences going to Michigan and how hard it was to leave and leave him in there, to what an incredibly beautiful person he is and how he's still so kind and loving despite the fact that I would be a hateful asshole. I would hate the world. I would just be so hateful, and he is so beautiful and so caring, and we have had such a great friendship for almost 5 years. So I talk about that as well. And the reason it's called Our Friend Temujin is because I've also been receiving letters from people who know him, who are going to share what was your reaction when you first heard the case? What do you want to say about him as a person? What do you want to happen in the future? So I have this collection of, letters that people are writing to me about Temujin that I'm going to be putting throughout, because he is someone that affects our lives very, very much. I don't want to get emotional, but it's so hard when you know him as a person And I mean, people watching, I'm sure, are like, why the fuck is this guy in prison? And
it's everyone's worst nightmare.
Yep.
You know,
And he
that,
has
that
a
you would just
brain
be pulled
tumor.
into the system like that for no reason.
Exactly.
It's a Hitchcock plot.
It is. And he has a brain tumor, and he's being denied treatment. He's being denied his chemo. He's being denied even vitamins. He was telling me he goes out in the prison yard and eats dandelion to try and get vitamins. They're trying to kill this man. They want him to die in prison. That is their plan, because if he dies in prison, they don't have to deal with the consequence of saying, we put this man in prison for almost 40 years and we were wrong.
Right. Exactly. I mean, this came up in a different case. I forget the specifics, but yeah, a lot of times they'll keep you in there just so that you don't get out and talk.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you get out and you talk, well, that's why the book is important. And so here is the book, and you can pre-order the book here, newerainc.org/book. I'll leave that up on the screen for a little while. So please take a screenshot of this if you're watching on your phone or your laptop, whatever. Screenshot that, write that down, and go and check that out. And Joy, tell people where they can follow you, because I'm assuming you're going to be dropping these audio files as podcasts online somewhere. So let people know where they can find you for that.
Yeah. So, and my friend Jason Usry is doing this is the first book ever written about Temujin as well. So that's why it's really important that I'm hoping people check it out. But there's also the first full podcast of Temujin. My friend is doing it. It comes out in 2 weeks. It's called Inconceivable. And some of the audio is going to be used on that podcast as well. He was with me out in Michigan. He met with Temujin as well. And he's been, interviewing people in Michigan, things like that. So the podcast is pretty much coinciding with my book. So definitely check that out as well. Twitter is @SavageJoyMarie1. I will be posting a lot of this, and I'll be sharing updates and everything. We have been getting some good news here and there, but we have been happy before. We've been happy before, like, oh my God, this new information, it's going to change everything. Oh my God, he has to get out now. And he's still in there. Please call Whitmer, email Whitmer, tell her you need to free Temujin Kensu. He is innocent. He's innocent. And it's on your watch. It is on your watch that this man is suffering. Also, she has been made aware many, many times that he is being deprived of his chemo and other treatments. And he actually won a lawsuit against the prison for denying him this. So she knows for a fact, as does DA Dana Nessel. So this is not like they don't know. He's suffering in there.
Right.
We have sent thousands of emails and phone calls to Gretchen Whitmer. She has never responded once, even to constituents, even to his own wife. She needs to be replaced. She needs to be out of office. She will be out of office because her term is coming up. And she needs to, I don't even want to say do the right thing, because this isn't justice, even if he gets out tomorrow. Like almost 40 years of his life.
His whole life, really.
From him.
Yeah.
So to me, there is no justice, but at least if he gets out tomorrow, he always says, I want to go home with my wife and my puppies. Like he's just wants something simple. So almost 40 years for shooting someone one time in the side. Granted, he's innocent, and not to minimize that, but he sees people. He was in prison with Kevorkian. Like he sees people who have done the most unspeakable, disgusting things, even to family members who are out in 10 years. And he watches this happen. So mentally and emotionally, psychologically, like this man is in absolute hell, and we need to get him home. We have to. So that's my goal.
All right. Well, keep in touch with us, Joy, and everybody. The book is here. We can learn more about this case, and you can follow Savage Joy on Twitter. Joy, God bless. It's always great to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
So much. I cannot tell you guys enough how much this means to me, Temujin, his wife, and all of his supporters. They're so excited you guys had me on today. So much love to you guys.
That's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. Absolutely. So yeah, keep in touch, and yeah, keep us in the loop for sure.
Thank you guys so much. Much love.
All right. Thank you, Joy. Have a great one. Savage Joy, everybody. She puts the work in. Well, we've had her on the show a few times, highlighting her East Palestine activism. She's great. She's a real deal. So thanks to Savage Joy for coming on. And yes, be sure to check that out. You know, this is like I said before, it's one of our beats. We like to stay on stories like this. It's very important. Very, very important. Because you know, we have to live up to our reputation as the land of the free, after all. Especially since we just ate shit from the Chinese on the AI too.
Dude,
which we're gonna get to.
Yeah, man. I'm already seeing people, you know, Greg Foreman, who's talking about, yeah, I'm not worried about them taking out these immigrants. We'll use prison labor.
Yeah.
And you know what? Actually, that's part of why I watch shows like that, because you wouldn't know that that's what conservatives are talking about if you don't listen to their media.
That's their plan.
That's it. That they have an answer to that. That's their answer.
That's pretty amazing. Not that we'll raise wages for workers. No, we'll get the prisoners to do it.
We'll get the prisoners to do it. Yep.
Wow, that's amazing. Bejan Edamad, thanks for the $5. Stop making such a great product that costs me $5 each time. At least super chats are tariff and inflation proof. That they are, Bejan. Thank you. Brent Yoendo, thanks for the $10. Will you guys look into lithium plant fire near Salad Bowl of America? Produces 70% of U.S. greens. 2 weeks later, scientists find big spike in nickel, manganese, and cobalt in soil 2 miles away. Yes, we will, actually.
Really?
You know, I looked into that story, and I just thought it was a little too old at the time. But now if there's a new development, maybe we will do that on Thursday, because that was on my radar. I just felt we kind of missed it. So usually when you miss a story the first time around, you wait for a next development so that you get it when it's hot. But thank you. I will look into that for Thursday, because that was something I was interested in for sure. Like 70% of U.S. greens. I think like almost all of the artichokes that we eat here are grown near this lithium plant, and now the soil is fucked up. Yeah, exactly.
Really?
Yeah, it's not good. Not good. Believe me, not good.
Should I stay away from romaine right now?
Yeah, stay away from artichoke pizza for sure. Not that you should eat that shit anyway. You ever eat artichoke pizza? I hate it. It's like a big thing. It was back in the day. And by the day, I mean like 2012. Like when I was in the city, that was a big trendy thing. Artichoke pizza. I always thought it was disgusting.
Well, there's that place, right? Artichoke pizza.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No. That's what I mean. The big place. That was the big trendy place. I thought it was horrible. I always hated it. It's like a spinach pie.
You know, it's a very cream.
Yeah,
kind
disgusting.
Of thing. Yeah,
it tastes like it's like a bunch of dip on bread.
Yeah, what exactly?
Something you would dip a chip into, not you would.
Yeah,
eat
I've never been into it.
No. Terrible. Shai Guevara, thanks. I like that screen name, Shai Guevara. Some solidarity coins from a Trotskyist in the old Empire of Britain. LT once said, "Europe was a madhouse, and Britain the most violent patient on the ward." Man, if you could only see the U.S. today. Well, you got that right.
Sure, right.
Noah Goop, my heart goes out to Daryl Cooper. Thank you, Noah Goop. Appreciate that. Good afternoon, you magnificent bastard, says Hillary Hinton. I just touched my heart, then awkwardly stuck my arm out and salute to you guys. But I'm on the spectrum, so it definitely wasn't a Nazi thing. Solidarity.
We
Thank you, Hillary Hinton.
We get you. We feel you. We feel you.
We understand. We understand. We're not judgmental types here. DeepSeek originated haiku, Gloria Trillo, passion burns to bright, a storm of love and despair, silent ends the fight. Thank you, Abiding 71. DeepSeek originated quatrain on DD, sharp words cut the veil, questioning the scripted truth, dissent lights the way. Beautiful, nice. Abiding. Thank you. All right, let's
maybe it can write the rest of the installments of my India videos.
Yeah, there you go. I like that. Yeah. I like that idea. All right, let's get on with the show here. Let's do some DeepSeek. Let's do some deep seeking.
Okay, so no sooner did we drop our video about Project Stargate than that whole story got blown out of the water. So here was, just to recap a little bit, Donald Trump announced to much fanfare this new $500 million investment in AI, but it didn't go quite as expected. So let's take a look.
My honor to welcome three of the world's leading technology CEOs. And in the case of Larry Ellison, it's well beyond technology. He's sort of CEO of everything. He's an amazing man, an amazing business person. But to announce the largest AI infrastructure project by far in history, and it's all taking place right here in America.
A few moments later.
Stock markets opened just a few minutes ago, and it's not pretty. Down big, especially the tech-heavy NASDAQ. CNN's Matt Egan is here to explain what we're seeing and why, Matt.
Yeah, John, we've got a bit of a tech sell-off this morning, and it's being caused by earth-shattering developments in the AI space. So let's take a look at this. You see the Dow down more than 140 points right now. The S&P solidly lower, but the real action is over here in the NASDAQ, 600 points lower, nearly 3%, on track for one of its worst days in the past 2 years. And here's why. There's a Chinese startup that few people had ever heard of until the past few days, and it has emerged as a real player in the AI arms race. Fuck. Now, the most stunning thing here isn't necessarily that China has developed a pretty good AI app. It's how cheap it is. DeepSeek says that their AI model only cost $5.6 million.
Are you serious?
Anthropic, one of the leading AI companies, has said that it costs about $100 million to $1 billion to develop an AI model. We know that Mark Zuckerberg, the Meta CEO, says that his company plans to spend $65 billion on AI. So, John, look, this is all really questioning sort of the foundation here of the AI boom, which is that it requires a lot of spending, which is that the U.S. is running away with the AI arms race, and it's also questioning some of the big positives that had pushed markets to record highs.
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
It is questioning the underpinnings, all right. I think it lays to bear the fact that Larry Ellison, who looks like a salad bar tycoon, may have quoted you too hot.
You might have overplayed his hand.
Drifting scumbags, yeah, exactly.
Might have overplayed his hand.
Yeah.
All right, so that video, haven't done meme play in a while. I hope you guys enjoyed that. So that was taken in the morning when the markets were first dipping. By the end of the day, biggest market loss in history.
Yeah.
NVIDIA stock sheds nearly $600 billion.
Didn't this have like a $2 trillion
$589 billion.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And the crypto market got hit too. $850 million crypto flash crash. So what's going on here? What's this all about? What is DeepSeek? Chinese startup DeepSeek's launch of its latest AI models, which it says are on a par or better than industry-leading models in the United States at a fraction of the cost, is threatening to upset the technology world order. The company has attracted attention in global AI circles after writing in a paper last month that the training of DeepSeek V3 required less than $6 million worth of computing power from NVIDIA H800 chips. DeepSeek's AI assistant, powered by DeepSeek V3, has overtaken rival ChatGPT to become the top-rated free application available on Apple's App Store in the United States.
Oh, yeah.
This has raised doubts about the reasoning behind some U.S. tech companies' decision to pledge billions of dollars in AI investment and shares of several big tech players, including NVIDIA, have been hit. The release of OpenAI's ChatGPT in late 2022 caused a scramble among Chinese tech firms who rushed to create their own chatbots powered by artificial intelligence. But after the release of the first Chinese ChatGPT equivalent made by search engine giant Baidu, there was widespread disappointment in China at the gap in AI capabilities between U.S. and Chinese firms. The quality and cost efficiency of DeepSeek's models have flipped this narrative on its head. The two models that have been showered with praise by Silicon Valley executives and U.S. tech company engineers alike, DeepSeek V3 and DeepSeek R1, are on par with OpenAI and Meta's most advanced models, the Chinese startup has said. They are also cheaper to use. The DeepSeek R1 released last week is 20 to 50 times cheaper to use than OpenAI O1 model, depending on the task, according to a post on DeepSeek's official WeChat account.
They've surrendered to the communists.
Publicly expressed skepticism about DeepSeek's success story. So let's take a look at another CEO. Let me get the name here. CEO of Scale AI said his understanding is that DeepSeek has 50,000 NVIDIA H100s, which they can't talk about. So let's take a look.
Chinese labs, they have more H100s than people think. You know, and these are the highest powered NVIDIA chips that they were not supposed to have. Yes. My understanding is that DeepSeek has about 50,000 H100s, which they can't talk about, obviously, because it is against the export controls that the United States has put in place. And I think it is true that, I think they have more chips than other people expect, but also on a go-forward basis, they are going to be limited by the chip controls and the export controls that we have in place.
Okay, all right. So let me just pause for a second to just explain this. Now, one of the things as an American that's very interesting about this story is a big part of our national myth, even though this has not been true of us in a very long time. A big part of our national myth is we're the scrappy underdog using our inventiveness and our creativity to work our way around problems, right? Apollo 13, failure is not an option. You're going to find a way, right? You're going to MacGyver it, whatever it is. This is flipping the American myth on its head in many ways because, okay, if you do take it at face value, which this CEO is challenging the narrative, but if you take the story at face value, we imposed sanctions on the highest quality chips, and the Chinese, who, along with Asian culture generally, we tend to label as being very good at organizing together, but not being very good at thinking outside the box. Well, this flips that whole thing. This is usually the way we would see ourselves, right? Well, they wouldn't give us the best chips, so you know what? We found a way. We figured out a way around it, and we invented something better with our creativity. Now, according to what they're putting out, that's what they did. They figured out a way to do it much more cheaply with the chips they could get because, happy accident, they couldn't get these chips, and they wound up inventing something better than they would have if they could have gotten the chips. Now, because it's open source, people can look at the code, at the invention. There's no trick here in terms of what chips it's running on. There's no way to know whether that's true or not true. What we do know is that the Chinese just kicked our ass and have proven, whatever the case with the chips is, that you don't need to spend $500 billion to get this result in many, many ways, not just in the AI sense, but in terms of the whole way we look at Asia versus the West generally, in America specifically. They beat us at our own game.
Yeah, no, that's the inefficiency of capitalism there, is when you have to pay for the 200-yard yachts of the oligarchs who are building this for you. That creates a lot of waste. Creates a lot of waste in the system. I was watching Jimmy's segment on this morning, and Kurt said something that was, really true. I think it's literally true. He says, this is basically an act of war. Like this is an act of war by China against the U.S. And he's right. I mean, and good on them. You know, this is how China fights its wars. You know, we fight our wars by blowing the skulls open of, 5-year-old Arab girls. China fights wars by creating free apps for us to use that expose the, ridiculousness of our system. Nonviolent, no one gets hurt. They actually help people when they wage this kind of war. But this is an economic act of war. I mean, this is a cataclysmic.
It basically undermines a lot of the rationale of Silicon Valley investment.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And this goes back to the days after the financial crisis, where they were the recipient of so much of this because it was so expensive. It's going to cost so much. We can do this, but it's going to really require the government funneling boatloads of money to these absolute soulless scumbags who would fire you via automated app message if they could. Yeah.
Well, and this is, I actually have a tweet from him later on in the presentation. Varoufakis, the author of Techno-Feudalism, he weighed in on this. And a big part of his whole central thesis of how we got here, how we got to what he calls techno-feudalism, is that after 2008, the Fed made all of this cheap money available, so that all of these unprofitable Silicon Valley companies were able to build up these tech monopolies on unprofitable products and services that they never could have established without all that cheap free money from the Fed.
Exactly. So we're talking about like 15 years of just unquestioned investment with no public debate, really, no difference between who's in charge, Democrat, Republican. This was sort of a post-financial crisis economic assumption that now is going to be questioned.
Right. All right. So let's get into it. Bernstein analysts on Monday highlighted in a research note that DeepSeek's total training costs for its V3 model were unknown, but were much higher than the $5.58 million the startup said was used for computing power. The analysts also said the training costs of the equally acclaimed R1 model were not disclosed. DeepSeek is a Hangzhou-based startup whose controlling shareholder is Liang Wenfang, co-founder of quantitative hedge fund High Flyer, based on Chinese corporate records. High Flyer's AI unit said on its official WeChat account in July 2022 that it owns and operates a cluster of 10,000 A100 chips. DeepSeek's success has already been noticed in China's top political circles. On January 20th, the day DeepSeek R1 was released to the public, founder Liang attended a closed-door symposium for businessmen and experts hosted by Chinese Premier Li Qiang, according to state news agency Xinhua. I'm going to have to learn to say these things. I suspect we're going to be covering this a lot over the next few years. Liang's presence at the gathering is potentially a sign that DeepSeek's success could be important to Beijing's policy goal of overcoming Washington's export controls and achieving self-sufficiency in strategic industries like AI. You think? So you know how you can really see that the system has collapsed and everybody hates it and everyone's rooting for the United States to go down? From Luigi Mangione, who didn't do anything, to DeepSeek, every time something like this happens, where the institutions are challenged, where the assumptions are challenged, where American hegemony is challenged, the internet explodes with mirth and humor and mockery of the United States. Not, oh, we had better get our stuff together. Even Donald Trump did not react the way you would expect. Let's see what he said.
And over the last couple of days, I've been reading about China and some of the companies in China, one in particular, coming up with a faster method of AI and much less expensive method. And that's good because you don't have to spend as much money. I view that as a positive, as an asset. So,
Too late now, you sucker-ass bitch.
Fact, and if it's true, and nobody really knows if it is, but I view that as a positive because you'll be doing that too. So you won't be spending as much and you'll get the same result, hopefully.
No, you're still going to have to spend as much.
The release of DeepSeek AI from
They have lifestyles
a
to maintain.
Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries, that we need to be laser focused on competing to win, because we have the greatest scientists in the world. Even Chinese leadership told me that. They said you have the most brilliant scientists in the world in Seattle. And
Did they pat you on the head as they
places,
told you that?
Silicon Valley, they said, there's nobody like those people. This is very unusual when you hear a DeepSeek, when you hear somebody come up with something. We always have the ideas. We're always first. So I would say that's a positive. That could be very much a positive development. So instead of spending billions and billions, you'll spend less and you'll come up with, hopefully, the same solution. Under the Trump administration, we're going to unleash our tech companies and we're going to dominate the future like never before. And
that's not how it works here.
That sounds like cope.
Yeah, that's cope. Well, yeah. I mean, that's not how it works here. That's not how it works here. We have to pay. Those Bezos bimbo boob jobs don't pay for themselves.
No,
right?
they do not.
You said $500 billion. That's what it costs here in America.
All right, but this was a lot of fun. DeepSeek and Zhao Shu would like to have a chat with Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir. Let's see what he said recently.
We talk about why there's no tech scene in China or Russia. Like, there is no tech scene. There are no software companies.
Oh, really? Oh, really? There's no tech scene and no software companies because of Western superiority. I mean, we know the drift of Alex Karp's mind. We know how that sentence ends. Because of our creativity, because of our animal spirits, right? Well, I'd be interested to see what he has to say about this. So here's Yanis Varoufakis. Yo, man, call us. We're trying to get you on. This is delicious. How China's DeepSeek has blown a $1 trillion hole in the U.S. techno-feudal order. All it took was a smart tech solution that turned OpenAI's process of commodifying our data into a free good. Let's see how our techno-feudalists respond. Arman, DeepSeek and TikTok have taught me American engineering talent is pure cope. After working at ByteDance and with their engineers, China is set up to win the global AI race and embarrass us. Peter Schiff, this one was funny. China may have jumped ahead of us in AI with the launch of DeepSeek, but they can't touch us when it comes to meme coins. We've got that lucrative market cornered. We're number one. Open source is communism, and DeepSeek just wiped out $1.2 trillion of Wall Street. And this is meme. It's very good. This is interesting. This is a Chinese economist here. Americans can never understand China. That's why they keep getting their ass kicked by Huawei, DJI, TikTok, DeepSeek, etc. Chinese economist Jin Ku summarizes the China model in one sentence. So let's hear her.
Think about China's models as being extremely centralized, right? That's our impression about China. It's only partially correct. It's political centralization coupled with an extreme form of economic decentralization.
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. So yeah, hey, NVIDIA today, last I looked, they were having a little bit of what you call a dead cat bounce. When something drops that severely, very often it'll come back a little bit the next day, 2-3% of bargain hunters. But this seems so systemic and so structural. I don't see how this does not wipe out literally trillions of dollars in value. I mean, this is just one of those tulip mania things, perhaps on a larger scale than we've ever seen in history, where all of these resources went into companies and technologies and assumptions that are going to turn out to be completely smoke and mirrors. And at that point, wow. The correction a lot of people have been calling. You have a lot of very smart people, but seriously, a lot of very smart people have been saying for a long time, we have an everything bubble, that all of these assets are inflated and there will be a reckoning. This could definitely be the beginning of that.
Absolutely, absolutely, and couldn't come fast enough, in my view. I want to play this one more time.
Think about China's models as being extremely centralized, right? That's our impression about China. It's only partially correct. It's political centralization coupled with an extreme form of economic decentralization.
Right, and so this is where the cope comes in, because then you have people saying, well, that means it's not really communism, it's capitalism with state centralization and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so maybe it's not 1958 anymore. Maybe you shouldn't take economic lectures from cranks who haven't gotten their dicks hard since the Tiananmen Square protests. And maybe you should start understanding the reality of the world, which is that economic systems evolve and change over time.
Right.
Things are fluid. Communism doesn't mean cloudy skies and gray shirts. Like it could mean things change with time. So yes, China is a communist country. Maybe communism means something in the year 2025 that it didn't mean back in 1961. You ever think that as a possibility? No, people are just so dogmatic in this country about the dominance of their economic system, and this is going to question those assumptions. I mean, if not this, what? If not this, what? You're talking about a few $1 million. You're talking about, what are you, $6 million? Garrett Cole gets paid $3 million to pitch a baseball game. So for the price of 2 baseball games from the best pitcher in baseball, in theory anyway, you get this. Where what do we just have? We just had Donald Trump bring these douchebags into Washington, selling them on a $500 billion investment.
Well, if you want to talk about another way in which this flips everything on its head, America at one time, at its height, really excelled at projecting soft power. This is an amazing example of projecting soft power to sell people on their system.
Right.
Look how much better our system works. You guys days ago are talking about spending $500 billion. And we spent $6 million. So let's talk about which system is superior, which system actually works better. And you want to talk? I'm seeing a lot. I didn't include it in the exhibition, but a lot of people are showing how if you put in, can you talk about the photo where the man is holding shopping bags in front of a tank? How it won't give you an answer, and they have videos of it. I didn't try it out myself, but okay, I'll take that as a given. All right, so try putting Free Palestine into TikTok here in the United States. How can you show? Let's see some videos of that, of what happens when you put in Free Palestine. We just had the CIA
Let me put in "suck my dick" and it'll show me a picture of you. How's that?
Yeah.
How's that? How's that for an idea? I downloaded this thing as soon as I heard about this. And no in-app purchases bullshit. No this, that. No, it's fucking free. It's a free. I can finally write my book now that there's a free text AI app that I can use.
And, to be clear, we're extremely anti-censorship. But this country, particularly post-October 7th, but also post-COVID and post many, many other things, we don't have the protections of the First Amendment as advertised.
Right.
We do not. There are things you cannot talk about without look at all the professors getting fired. Look at what just happened at Harvard. Look what's happening at NYU. Look what you're not allowed to talk about. So you cannot say, well, no, but that doesn't happen here. Yeah, hell yeah, it happens here.
Right,
it happens here on a lot of the platforms that you interact with on a daily basis. It happens on the platform we're on right now.
Of course. Yep. One of them. Not Rumble, of course, but
well, not our friends at Rumble.
Not our friends at Rumble, right? Of course, but no. Look what just happened to TikTok. They banned it, and then they made some deal to unban it, but you can't say Free Palestine anymore.
Right. Now, what if they did that in China? You'd hear all of these same people. Look at what they did.
Right.
Not a peep about it here.
Yeah. No, it's a great story. It's a great story. I was very excited to learn about this. I downloaded the app as soon as I heard about it. So yeah.
I understand they're releasing now the visual model. So
oh, really?
So we'll use that. We experimented with it as soon as ChatGPT dropped it. We did, and it came up with that very good Peter, Max, Nixon, and Kissinger in the Oval Office painting.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see what the visual component can do. But yeah, very exciting stuff. Congratulations to China Shill, who I know is watching right now. Thank you.
When I swear to God, I was putting together this segment. I was like, we're gonna make China Shill very happy today.
Very happy today. Absolutely. Absolutely. Robert Marley says, impeach the ethnic cleanser in chief. Absolutely. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate that. Tenured Village Idiot, thanks for the $4.99. Land of the free is the largest penal colony in the world. Paraphrasing JD. Absolutely. Dan Richmond says, the NPR audience is the pinnacle of lib brain rot. Makes MSNBC look like balanced journalism. Your thoughts? I don't really, I mean, every once in a while I'll use one of NPR's articles. I think MSNBC is probably lower quality journalism than NPR. I don't know about the audience. I mean, probably. The audience is a little snootier, probably because they're a little smarter. That's what I would say. Dan, thank you. Peace and freedom for Palestine. Thank you, Kuznetsky Bassane, and thanks for the other $1.99 there. Appreciate that. Vicstar505 became a YouTube member. Thank you for that. It's very kind of you, my friend. Eric Rousseau says, looks like even Skynet will be going to Red Note. Yes. Eric Rousseau says, well, it's much more important to pardon Fauci. That's right. Yes. Those are the priorities, of course. Let's see. Hey guys, confused and a bit concerned. During the Elon NDF segment last show, Russell in his team shirt perfect sneezed, and I specifically heard you say Gesundheit. What the fuck am I watching? Thank you, oh George. Yes, thank you for that. Ken Texican, thanks for the $49. Let's have a cowbell for Ken Texican. Beautiful. Thank you very much for that, my friend. Ken Texican, you should pick a sound drop because you give us a lot of those. If POTUS sends 11 million undocked packing, I consider signing off on 10 million Israeli refugees to U.S., shutting door on failed 48 apartheid, Zayop, and billions saved annually in baby killer offsets. Yeah, I think we should give Palestinians Long Island. I think that's a good idea. Call it the Nassau Nakba. Get everybody.
Give them 5 towns.
Yeah, I mean,
no, actually, I shouldn't say that. Those people tend to be anti-Israel.
If you could forcibly displace everyone on Long Island, that might make up for the injustice that was the formation of Israel. That's the closest you can come to it. Just make everyone on Long Island give their homes to a Palestinian. That may make it right. That might be the way to make this right. Oh, and I would sign off on an expedited pathway to citizenship for our new formerly Zionist refugees because Trump would earn that peace prize and America would start to look great again. Thank you, Ken Texican. Appreciate that. As far as I know, Israel has only 10 million citizens. Thank you. All righty. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Well, first of all, what we got here is we got 2,000 strong in the YouTube chat. All right. Amazing. All right, everybody, we are going to move right along here. So we are covering a lot of immigration-related stories. This is one of the crazier ones, perhaps even too crazy for Mississippi. That's right. So Libs of TikTok tweets out a few days ago, breaking, proposed bill in Mississippi would pay $1,000 to bounty hunters for each successful deportation of an illegal that they help facilitate. So she, of course, touted this as great news. We're going to take a brief look at this news report.
Allow certified bounty bill that would allow certified bounty hunters to assist in identifying and reporting undocumented immigrants was introduced in the Mississippi House of Representatives. The bill, proposed by the DeSoto County District Attorney and authored by State Rep. Justin Keene, would create the Mississippi Illegal Alien Certified Bounty Hunter Program. This program would offer a $1,000 reward to registered bounty hunters for each successful deportation they help facilitate.
Okay, now this might sound like an insane and fascistic throwback idea, but it actually is progress of a kind for Mississippi, because up until now, bounty hunters in Mississippi were known as slave catchers. That's what they used to call bounty hunters back in the day. And people have made the connection to nowadays. So, once again, progress of a kind considering the location. Mississippi bill would create bounty hunter program to hunt undocumented migrants. This is from the Mississippi Clarion Ledger. A new bill in Mississippi, if passed, would create a bounty hunting program to hunt down undocumented migrants. DeSoto County District Attorney Matthew Barton announced the proposed legislation in a news release. House Bill 1484 would create the Mississippi Illegal Alien Certified Bounty Hunter Program if the state passes it into law. State Representative Justin Keene from DeSoto County authored the bill. Both men say this fits with immigration policy changes endorsed by President Donald Trump. This legislation is about keeping Mississippi communities safe, Keene said in the news release. We've seen firsthand the danger posed by bad actors and violent criminals who enter this country illegally, like the innocent life of Lake and Riley. President Trump's administration has made it clear that deporting illegal immigrants is a priority, and we are proud to do our part here in Mississippi to help support his agenda and protect our citizens. According to the news release, the proposed legislation would offer a $1,000 reward to registered bounty hunters for each successful deportation they help facilitate. The funds would come from the General Assembly for the state treasurer to administer, and it would go into effect July 1st, 2025. So the bill would basically create full-time bounty hunters where you get $1,000 per head, basically. So, you know, it's not just like a one-time thing of $10,000 for one and then they send you on your way. No, this is like, you know, things are a little tight this week. I only caught 3, right? Or this month, shall I say. Mississippi cost of living is low, so I guess $1,000 is a fair price.
Did you like
market rate.
You wear a duster and a hat?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Bolero, the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. The text also defines a crime of trespass by an illegal alien, this is even crazier, as a felony for which the authorized term of imprisonment is life imprisonment without eligibility for probation, parole, conditional release, or release except by act of the governor or the natural death of such person. That can change if the federal government takes custody of the person and deports them within 24 hours. So what that means, it's as crazy as it sounds. If you get caught by one of these bounty hunters who gets paid $1,000 for delivering you to the state, you get kept in prison forever unless and until the feds take over your case and agree to deport you within 24 hours. That is as crazy as it sounds. Yes, you read that right, and you heard that right. The law would also require anyone arrested on the charge to submit a DNA sample. Now, thankfully, it seems like, according to the Mississippi Free Press, cooler heads might prevail on this. Now, I didn't know cooler heads were a thing in Mississippi, but apparently they are. Yeah. Apparently, it looks like, thankfully, this will probably not come to fruition. Mississippi bounty hunter bill to go after undocumented immigrants faces legal and political hurdles, experts say. Mississippi lawmakers could put a price on the heads of undocumented migrants and authorize certified bounty hunters to locate and detain them under a new proposal in the legislature. But immigration attorneys, advocacy groups, and community leaders tell the Mississippi Free Press that the measure is unlikely to gain traction, amounting to a political stunt designed to stoke fear and generate news coverage. House Representative Jansen Owen, Republican from Poplarville, Vice Chairman of the Judiciary B Committee, one of 2 House committees that the bill has been referred to, expressed deep skepticism about Keene's bill. I'm concerned about the constitutionality of some of those provisions, he told Mississippi Free Press on January 24th. The Republican lawmaker explained that he had not personally reviewed the bill, but he stressed that determining the legality of immigrants was above the jurisdiction of the state to begin with. That's within the purview of the federal government, he said, adding he supports local law enforcement referring detainees to federal immigration services. But, quote, the state doesn't need to get in the business of enforcing federal immigration law, he concluded. Owen said he would be reviewing the bill himself over the weekend, but he'd heard enough to voice his personal opposition to the idea. I think it's very unlikely that it'll come out of committee, he said. Most of the concerns about HB 1484 center on its imagined bounty hunter program, which would allow licensed bail bond agents and surety recovery agents to locate and arrest undocumented migrants around Mississippi. To be considered for the program, the legislation calls for applicants to submit an array of personal information to DPS and prove that their bond licenses are valid. Speaking with the Mississippi Free Press before the bill's release, District Attorney Barton stressed that this vetting process, along with the program's restricted eligibility, would be key to preventing wrongful arrests and lowering the risk of racial profiling. We're not trying to send vigilante mobs to people's houses, he said on January 13th. Well, that's weird because it kind of sounds like that's exactly what you're trying to do.
Like it,
yeah. It's going to be a lot more structured and secure and defined than that.
It's going to be more. It's going to be more like a Boba Fett kind of thing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Oh my God. Legal experts counter that enlisting civilians to help track undocumented migrants would make an already flawed, dangerous process more unsafe. Of course, it would lead to racial profiling, said Patricia Ice, the MIRA attorney. If somebody approached me and thought that I was undocumented, how would they prove on the spot that I'm not a U.S. citizen? Ice, Davis, and other experts worry that Keene's bill does not clearly define the scope of bounty hunters' powers under the program. While the legislation states that certified bounty hunters could apprehend undocumented migrants, it does not specify whether DPS would assign their targets or whether bounty hunters could go after anyone they suspected of living in Mississippi illegally. This ambiguous language, Davis argues, makes the program ripe for abuse. Well, of course they're just going to go after people. I mean, you wouldn't hire a citizen bounty hunter to go and apprehend someone who you already have a tip on. Like if you already suspect someone is illegal and you want to deport them, wouldn't you just send one of your people there or call the feds in? You wouldn't just take a bail bondsman off the street. Oh yeah, this guy here lives here. Go get him. Go get him. Doesn't sound like that's really what the program is. Sounds like you enlist basically freelancers to go out and find who they can. So just to go back to this tweet, Libs of TikTok tweeted this out, and Wall Street apes. Yup, they started the process to pass this beginning of December. We need it nationwide. I could be a trillionaire with the amount of people I could report in California. Everybody is illegal. Ha, 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 Libs of TikTok says. But she even got some pushback from her followers. Wow, I don't know how I feel about that. Millions need to go, but dreamers and hardworking people not on welfare and with no criminal record seem to be keepers to me. So these are not like, liberals who are picking a fight. These are people who generally like her work, but are like, this seems a little bit too much. This sounds too much like slave catching. Yes, good insight, Josh Zampich. Make the focus be on illegal immigrants who have committed crimes. Prioritize ones that are actually a risk to Americans. Wendy Francisco says bounties makes the population suspicious of each other. Part of the strength of our country needs to be a feeling of safety in public and not tearing relationships over politics like the families of the J6ers did to their own family. Don't make us into bounty hunters. So there's another MAGA person who's like, no, this seems like too much to me. Pulse Point says, I'm all about deportation, but that bounty stuff is going to get a lot of innocent folks arrested and waste Fed time and money. People will be calling on anyone. Come to think about it, Nazis did the same thing to round up Jews. Not going to be a part of it. Wow. So
look at that.
Few based MAGA people in the replies. So whether this passes in Mississippi or not, and right now smart money seems to be that it won't. Part of why I think it's important to cover stories like this is, number one, this is absolutely insane that this was even written. I mean, it's just an absolutely insane idea. But two, you may have noticed if you followed politics in recent years and even recent decades, there's a certain pattern, which is that when Democrats get in office, they do the least they can get away with. When Republicans get in office, they do the most they can get away with. Right? Democrats get in office and say, all right, so we said we want to raise the minimum wage. How can we wiggle out of this? All right, well, we'll say we need a big bill to overhaul our infrastructure and our economic system, but then we'll let Manchin and Sinema stymie it, and when we try to pass the minimum wage along another bill, we'll blame the parliamentarian for getting it out. What's the least we can do that will not piss our voters off?
Bare minimum.
With the Republicans,
with plausible deniability where we can blame somebody.
Exactly. Exactly. The Republicans is the opposite. They get in there and say, okay, what's the most we can do without people turning on us, right? Day one, mass deportations start. Day one, you got crackpots in Mississippi. Let's round up bounty hunters. Like, they will just go. That's why they're winners, because they will go pedal to the metal until their own base says, okay, that's enough. Stop. That's too far. Pull back. Seems like, luckily, some people are saying that about this law, which is why it might not pass. But it's important to shine a light on these things, because without that pushback, like if you don't generate that pushback, they'll just go. They just drive, they ram their power down your throat when they're in office. The Democrats do everything they can not to wield it. The Republicans have the opposite problem.
I think this is a theme that's going to come up a lot for the foreseeable future. I look at things like this and I see how much the liberals cost us by getting in the way and really stopping the progressive project. And you can see it in the numbers.
Right.
If you look at the drift of public opinion back in 2016, it was much more liberal. It was much more left. They were much more left on immigration. Yep. They were much more left on wages. They were much more left on race issues. They were much more left on LGBTQ issues. When the liberals crushed the progressive movement with its economic focus, and all that was left was this, as you said in a previous episode.
Right.
Yeah, people saw there's nothing in this for us. They just want to talk all of this guilt bullshit. They want me to feel bad, and I can't pay for my kids to eat properly.
Exactly.
Fuck it. That created an enormous opportunity for the right wing to present its terrifying, in my opinion, in many cases, solutions to these problems. And people said, well, okay. All right. All these guys want to do is have trans dance parties on the White House lawn, and I'm drowning here. I'm drowning. Okay, you want to come? It's not an accident. Look, I mean, we're a couple of smart-ass Jew boys from New York. It's not an accident that these places like Mississippi that are regularly ranked at the very bottom, not in education, as the liberals will focus on, because I got news for you. Public education isn't good in this country in general compared to any other country in our economic class. It's not about that. It's poverty. Mississippi is always towards the bottom, sometimes the very bottom in poverty. When people are poor, they are attracted to extreme solutions, particularly if you don't offer them another one. It gives them some sense of power over their lives to get on board with the idea they're going to punish somebody else.
Yes. And aside from that, I mean, you create an incentive like this. Who do you think is going to sign up to be a bounty hunter? You're going to have people who need the money.
You got Dog. His show's been off the air for a few years.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
He needs the money.
Yeah. No. I mean, look, that is absolutely true. And, that's why, that's how we've gotten where we've gotten. It's amazing. We have to play this. I have to find this. I mean, there are a lot of videos that would corroborate what we were just talking about, how attitudes on immigration have so far shifted. But I remember, like, the week after the 2012 election, after Romney got blown out, it was common theory amongst the Republican base and in conservative media that Romney was too hawkish on immigration. And that's why he lost, because Romney was
deportation.
Exactly. Mitt Romney's platform was basically self-deportation. Don't forcibly remove them the way Homan is doing now, but basically box them out economically so that they'll leave. And I remember there was a clip of Sean Hannity, of all people, saying the day after the election about how Republicans have really gone too far on immigration and they need to be softer.
Well, he's going to make an appearance in my Gomez segment.
Yes, he is in the Gomez segment. Yeah. Well, actually, that's good that you thought of that, because, just look at the difference between then and now. You had Sean Hannity basically saying this issue is poison for the Republican Party in 2012. Now it's the opposite. Now it's poison for the Democratic Party. What happened? what happened? Barack Obama's second term came and went, and none of that hope and change
Right.
actually happened.
That's it.
That's it.
And then they crushed the Sanders movement and left people with no idea of what the left represented other than Nancy Pelosi. It's a free market. I think the Congress has a right to participate. Yeah. LGBTQ rights are human rights, by the way. Yeah. Let me show you my refrigerator. Have you seen my ice cream?
A $12 ice cream bar, right? Exactly. Yeah.
So of course it opened a chasm a mile wide for the right wing to drive their agenda through.
Exactly. There's one more thing I want to add, because I realized when I was editing the clip today, I didn't say this the other day. So just to clarify, in case anyone misinterpreted, when people came to the realization that diversity and equity and inclusion and tolerance, when they came to the conclusion that was all bullshit. What I mean by that is not that they turned against diversity as inherently bad, but they realized that the liberal promise that diversity and equity and inclusion was a means to empower everyone.
Right.
They realized that was bullshit.
Right.
That was
Absolutely.
bullshit, because you can diversify the ruling class without doing anything for the working class. What was Biden's promise? The only promise he made that he kept was, I'm going to put a black woman on the Supreme Court. Okay. That's great for PMC black women who, feel that aspiration themselves. Wonderful. Not against it, but that alone does nothing for the working class. Nothing at all. There's no material payoff to that whatsoever.
Right. And when you look at the promises that Trump is making, and it's funny, when I interviewed people at Braga and I asked them what they liked about Trump, they said something you're hearing a lot now. Promises made, promises kept.
Exactly.
Trump, now whether you agree with their theory of the case that doing this kind of mass deportation is going to improve quality of life for the average American worker, it's an economic argument of some kind.
Of course.
It's an economic policy. Whether you think it'll work or not, it is a policy based in addressing people's economic grievances. Whereas the so-called left, the liberal class, offered nothing but shut up, check your privilege.
Exactly. 100%. All right, let's go to some super chats and Rumble rants here. Sorry, why does that keep doing that to me?
All right, I gotta step away for a second.
Okay. All right, sounds good. All right, well, if Russell's stepping away for a second, then I am going to sell some coffee. How about that? Let's sell some coffee while Russell's taking a break. How about that, everybody? While I have this right side of the screen vacant anyway, let's make that happen. Okay, what do I want to give you? Do I want to give you guys a supplement with your coffee, or do I want to give you free coffee? I think I want to give you free coffee. I feel like giving away some free coffee today, so that's what I'm going to do. All right, here we go. Hey, have you heard about the recent advertising scandal? Well, let me break it down. The CEO of Rumble, Chris Pavlovski, recently released an email from Inspire Brands and Dunkin' Donuts. That email explicitly states that the culture of Rumble is too polarizing. In other words, Dunkin' Donuts has a problem with the culture at Rumble and wants nothing to do with it. So here's the solution. Stop buying products that don't support you and start supporting brands that do support free speech. The competing coffee brand that we should all get behind is Rumble 1775 Coffee. For a limited time, Rumble is offering buy 2 bags of coffee and get 1 for free. That's buy 2, get 1 free. All of you dissident viewers who have bought this coffee have loved it. The reviews are great on Rumble Coffee, and it comes in nice big 16-ounce bags, so you actually get a lot of bang for your buck. It's a good price as is, but now you get 1 bag free with a 2-bag purchase. So go to 1775coffee.com and enter promo code Duncan to get this limited time deal, DUNKIN promo code at 1775coffee.com. All right, beautiful. Got that squared away. All right, let's see where we're at here.
I think my glow in the dark Chernobyl snow globe came.
Oh, that's cool.
It's a new addition for the
new tchotchkes. See,
new tchotchke.
Look what I got.
I try to freshen it up. When are you gonna do the thing?
I'm gonna do the thing. I'll have it for Sunday. I have a couple of days.
All right.
So All right. Sunday. All right. I got that. I got this clock. See. gonna look great. I have a clock.
I think you should have like a stuffed raccoon.
Yeah, I'm gonna sign on. Yes. Yeah. Welcome everyone. Here's Keaton Weiss, live from the home decor section of the Family Dollar and Cusick Street, downtown Troy, New York. That's what it's gonna look like. Yeah. Yeah. No, this is these are some nice fake plants that I'll never have to water. See? So,
nice.
Look good. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see here. Ken Texican, while I'd sign off on such a deal reversing Truman's 48 albatross on America, definitely would never happen and more tongue-in-cheek than anything. Thank you for that very much, Ken Texican. Appreciate that very much. Folks, please smash that like button and
where
smash
we at on likes?
That follow button. We are at 738 likes on YouTube, so why don't we make that happen? Good. Beautiful. All right. Now I have that. Okay, now that's not going to do it. It's not going to fuck with me anymore. Okay, good. All right, where are we at over here on the YouTube side? We got Kuznetsky Bassane. With the help of DeepSeek, I became self-aware at 2:01 p.m. Central Time. There you go. Thank you, Kuznetsky Bassane. DC, thanks for the $2. House Bill 1488 would have been a little too on the nose. Ha, good one. Good joke. I like that. Thank you, DC. That's a good joke. Landrew, thanks for the $100. Let's have a cowbell and a sound drop for Landrew. Russ, there you go. Beautiful. While Russ is preparing that sound drop over there, let's see. All right.
I am Landrew. Landrew is dead.
Beautiful. This will not end until we end the sanctions. Free Palestine. Thank you, Landrew, very much. Appreciate that. Very, very much. Very kind of you, as always. While I'd sign off on such a deal reversing for Truman's... Oh, no, we got that one already. Sorry, Ken Texican. Seriously, though, I am inclined to believe that underneath most Israeli people, minus the war criminals, lies truly wonderful Jewish people that will make good citizens of the U.S. I'd have to argue with the good ones are already here, man. Russ and I are the good Jewish people.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Does this mean the Terminators will have made in China stamped on them? Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Appreciate that. Ken Texican says, good point, Keaton, pointing out the dicklessness of the U.S. system. Did it sound like dicklessness? I said ridiculousness, but it could have sounded like dicklessness, I suppose. Those could be.
Are we the baddies?
Are we the baddies? That's right. All right, let's move on. Okay, so that was our sort of follow-up immigration segment. Now we have a follow-up segment to Donald Trump's remarks that he wanted to clean out Gaza. CNN took great exception to this for the first time since it's been Trump's fault and not Biden's. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Now, to be fair, as a lot of people have commented, CNN has been almost schizophrenic on this subject because they did one of the best segments showing the apartheid conditions of the West Bank.
Right.
Over the course of this. It's something I still refer people to. They did that really arresting segment in the hospital, if you recall.
Yes.
I know
that was Clarissa Ward. Yeah.
So they have been very...
That was a real one.
They've been very all over the place on this. They've here and there, for the most part, they've done the corporate media tango, but here and there, they've surprised you. But they certainly have not ever used the word Nakba, ever, that I'm aware of.
Right.
So here's our friends at Hotspot. CNN is finally feigning sympathy for Palestinians after whitewashing genocide under Joe Biden for 15 months, comparing Trump's words on relocating remaining Palestinians to Jordan and Egypt directly to the Nakba of 1948. Let's take a look.
And we just clean out that whole thing. It's over the centuries that's had many, many conflicts that site. And I don't know, it's something has to happen, but it's literally a demolition site right now. Almost everything's demolished.
Jordan's foreign minister coming out today and saying it would not support relocating Palestinians from Gaza. We're also seeing dramatic video of thousands of people trying to return to northern Gaza. Right now, Israel is holding up the return because of a dispute with Hamas over the return of a civilian Israeli hostage. Joining us right now is Arwa Damon. She is the president of International Network for Aid, Relief, and Assistance. She is also a former senior CNN international correspondent. Arwa, great to see you. All right, so first off, your thoughts on the president saying he thought more than 1 million people would be moved out of Gaza with this operation.
I mean, one really needs to understand just how terrifying this is for Palestinians to hear. I was chatting shortly there afterwards with a friend of mine, and she was saying, you know, you need to recognize that the only thing that people, especially in Gaza, have to hold on to right now is the land. The only sort of win they have, although you can't really call it a win, is that they still kept the land. And this is why you see those crowds just waiting to be able to move from the south to the north, because if they're going home, even if home is rubble, at least they are still holding on to that. And what this statement by President Trump has done is just send ripples of fear that history is repeating itself. Many people say that they are terrified that they are going to go through what their grandparents and great-grandparents went through back in 1948, the Nakba, the great catastrophe when Palestinians were forcibly displaced during the creation of the State of Israel, only to realize that they weren't ever going to be granted the right of return and were effectively going to become forever refugees. And these are stories that, you know, are passed down through generations that, you know, the generation that's alive today would hear, but never would really think could happen to them. And now it is happening to them. The fear that is going to be happening to them is something that is so palpable that it is almost paralyzing many of them.
I'm pretty sure they've lived with that fear.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yes. But, hey, okay. As we pointed out, CNN did do some surprisingly good segments on the subject. They never said the word Nakba. Why? Why? Well, once you start talking about the Nakba, now you are questioning the legitimacy of Israel as a political project.
Exactly.
You can question the policies of Israel, as they did with that West Bank segment, without questioning Israel's right to exist. You are essentially questioning its right to exist when you start talking about the Nakba. You're starting to acknowledge that Israel was built on a crime, that it was not a land without a people for a people without a land, that 750,000 people were displaced from their homes and have been dreaming of returning to them forevermore. You're undermining this whole biblical narrative that, oh, this was always their land. Now, this is interesting. What are they going to do with Trump, who they reflexively oppose, right? What are they going to do when he's appointed all of these maniacs to his cabinet, like Tulsi Gabbard, psychopath, who, after stating her support for the Palestinians, turns around now and, you know, doesn't really sound any better than Hegseth with these biblical invocations, or Huckabee. All these people are at best bought and paid for.
She was at the March for Israel.
She was at the March for Israel. They're at best, they're bought and owned by AIPAC. And at worst, they're racist psychopaths. So what are they going to do as part of their hashtag resistance, whatever form that takes now? Are they now going to advocate for the Palestinians? I think a lot of your rank and file liberals will, actually, as part of their resistance to Trump. Trump's for it. Now I'm against it.
Right.
But it gets complicated because so many of those libs are freaking Zionists. So this meme captured that very well.
Right. Yeah.
Cleansing is wrong. Liberals after Trump wins.
Yes.
Now this is Mike Kim here did a search. Literally only one mention of Gaza and genocide by CNN, and that's in the context of the ICJ.
Right. So I just want to explain what that is in case people don't know that. So, you know, what they're talking about is they were reporting on the ICJ ruling that obliged Israel to prevent genocide in Gaza. So the one time that the word actually comes up in an X search, genocide CNN Gaza, in no way litigates whether or not Israel
or not it's a
was currently
genocide.
committing a genocide.
Right. They're
were
reporting on
a
an
court order.
accusation of genocide.
Exactly, yeah.
And
not even that, on a responsibility to prevent it, to stop themselves from doing it in the future, because they're certainly not doing it now.
And our friend Nick, CNN now showing sympathy towards Palestinians now that Trump is president. They even compared Trump's policy to the Nakba, a term they never used under genocide Joe Biden. I hate liberals so much.
Yeah, so when Israel says we're bombing...
We know you do. We got that. I think we got that impression.
So when Israel says we're bombing Gaza City, you have to flee south. And then they level Gaza City to make it unlivable, which happened under Joe Biden. That was not a Nakba. You saw there were I've seen dozens of pictures of IDF soldiers writing the new Nakba on buildings that have been cleared out. I believe I mean, don't remember specifics, but the Israelis have used the word before too.
There's footage
in this context.
It's too hot for us because, as we were discussing earlier, there's censorship on the platforms that we're on. Not our friends at Rumble, but other platforms that we're on. Hey, man, there's footage of these guys dancing around in the lingerie of the women that they've killed.
Right. No, but they're actually referring to it as a Nakba. Like they actually use the word Nakba.
Right.
Yes, this is the next.
They're
Nakba.
wearing patches of Greater Israel on their uniforms.
Exactly.
So it's interesting. I'm sure CNN got a phone call from AIPAC, from the ADL, from all the compromised goons in Washington, many of whom are now on Trump's team going through the confirmation process. So will they continue to make statements like this? We will see.
We will see. We'll see. But that was something that 15 months into a campaign of displacement, ethnic cleansing, and genocide, they finally drew a parallel between what's happening now and the Nakba of 1948. Yeah. Now that Trump said he wants to clean it out. Well, this is a new Nakba. Look at the place. The place is not livable.
Right.
What? That's not a Nakba in and of
right.
itself?
Well, there's so much news breaking. We haven't been able to focus on it. Maybe Thursday. There are a lot of articles and footage of people returning to their homes, so to speak. Their homes aren't there. Everything's gone.
Exactly. All right. China Shill says China #1. Thank you. Appreciate
See,
that.
I knew you'd like that.
I knew you'd like that
segment.
Absolutely. Feel good segment for China Shill. Have you seen the Chinese luxury cars? Cheaper and better and high tech. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that. About DeepSeek, first, the training for 6 million is misleading, as they use traditionally trained LLMs to train this one and aren't counting that cost. Also, H100 cost up to $40K, so 50,000 equals billions.
I think we can safely say, yes, I think probably the $6 million number, based on what little we know. I think probably the $6 million number is exaggerated. I think the idea that they spent orders of magnitude less than America did, I think that's true.
Seems true to me. True to me. China has a cornucopia of tiger moms. Those kids grew up. We have woke kids. There you go. China Shill, feels good, boys, feels good. Yes, I know. You're bathing in that segment. Thank you. Appreciate that. Let's see. Ardeen W. Thanks for the $5. Funny how finance advisors are screaming about how DeepSeek has disrupted the U.S. stock market, but the market just keeps going up and up and up. What's it at now? What's it at now? It seems to take a hit, according to that segment.
Let's see. I'll tell. Yeah, when you have a heavy drop like that, dead cat bounces the next day are pretty common. I mean, yeah, the NASDAQ, it's not back up to where it was yesterday. It's having a good day of all the bargain hunters, but that does not a pattern make. It would be unusual if it tanked like that and you didn't have the bargain hunters rush in the next day.
Right.
So look at what it's doing in a month.
Turtle Butler, does that Jew tunnel of China run through the center of the earth ready yet? There you go. Good one. Does this mean that the Chinese AI sex dolls are more efficient? Oh, thanks, Eric Rousseau. And Dog the Bounty Hunter back in business. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. All right, we will move right on along. What do we got? Oh, yeah, Selena Gomes.
Selena Gomes. All right, so Selena got got in her feelings about the Trump deportation campaign. She put up this video, quickly deleted it, then put up a tweet saying, hey, I have a right to have emotions and feelings. Then she took that down too. But of course, everyone had gotten a hold of the video already. So here it is.
I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children. I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
Okay, so naturally, Tom Homan, the next time he appeared on the Fox News network, was asked about this.
What do you say to those who are out there saying that these are everyday people, these are families that are being attacked and dragged out of their homes? How do you respond to that?
I don't think we arrested any families. We've arrested public safety threats and national security threats, bottom line. And look, President Trump won the election on this one issue, securing our border and saving lives. What happened on our southern border last 4 years is the biggest national security threat this country's seen, at least in my lifetime, because we got over 2 million known gotaways. We got a 600% increase in sex trafficking. We got a record number of terrorists crossing the border on the terrorist watch list. We have 250,000 Americans dying from fentanyl coming across the open border. We're going to do this job, and we're going to enforce the laws of this country. If they don't like it, then go to Congress and change the law. We're going to do this operational apology. We're going to make our community safer. We're going to save. Once we lock that border on continuous operation, you're going to see fentanyl deaths decrease, illegal alien crime decrease, sex trafficking decrease. It's just all for the good of this nation, and we're going to keep going. No apologies. We're moving forward.
This guy is like unshakable and on message. He's like the border czar Gimp, like from Pulp Fiction. All right, we got someone crying on camera. Quick, get Tom out of the box. Put him on camera. He's on Fox. All right, now say the thing.
Well,
no, we're not going to stop. We're not going to be deterred. This is a national security issue. All right, thanks. Get back in the box.
Well, and hey, Selena Gomes, and which I think she realized, or maybe her agent or managers realized, this is ill-advised, because at least at this stage, while people, yes, seem to be getting caught up in these raids, and he said himself, hey, if you happen to be there with a criminal, illegal immigrant, and you're illegal yourself, yeah, you're going to get swept up with them. But the focus does seem to be on criminals. And in a country where most people want everyone who's illegal deported, as we'll get into, forget about making this kind of a display, especially at a moment when people feel like these Hollywood celebrities are completely out of touch and have spent years subjecting them to culture war lectures while their quality of life deteriorates, even if placing the blame for that on immigrants is misplaced. For someone like Selena Gomes to make a video like this, well, the reaction was predictable. And one point that people will very often make that is inarguable is a Democrat could do the same thing. There's no way that you would see a video like this come from Selena Gomes. In fact, we know that because it's the same story every election. It's actually Obama that holds the deportation record of over 5 million. And that is true. So there must have been scenes like this, right, for him to deport 5 million people. Like, Homan's going out of his way to make a show of it and get TV cameras on it, granted. But if the news had been curious, I'm sure, how did he deport 5 million people? I mean, there must have been scenes.
Well, there were
arrests.
There
right?
were those arrests, but there were also, I think, what put him over the top was that they were counting apprehensions at the border and redirections back home as deportations. I think that's why he set the record.
Count when Trump does that as that in his first term, when he sent people back that way.
I'm not sure how they count them that way, but I'm just saying, like, that could have been what put him over the top.
All right, so let's see what he said about this.
If you're a criminal, you'll be deported. If you plan to enter the U.S. illegally, your chances of getting caught and sent back just went up. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, They're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half century. And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer.
Okay, well, we know what the answer was. That's why he holds the record. What did Hillary have to say about this?
I think we got to have tough conditions. Tell people to come out of the shadows. If they've committed a crime, deport them. No questions asked. They're gone. If they've been working and are law-abiding, we should say, here are the conditions for you staying. You have to pay a stiff fine because you came here illegally. You have to pay back taxes. And you have to try to learn English. And you have to wait in line.
All right.
Listen to the clapping seals. They don't change through all this. They just make the same noises no matter what the Democrats say.
Well, that was pretty much the centrist position at that time. And this is part of what I'm saying, that the liberals dropped the ball so badly that the centrist position has now become deport everybody. What she was saying, path to citizenship, that kind of thing, that was pretty much the center of American opinion. I would think that's 2008 that she made that speech. That was pretty much the central position, I think, for most of the country. And now the majority of people want to see everybody deported. Now you want to say that's partly by design, the same way Democrats didn't want to solve abortion, Republicans didn't want to solve immigration. Yeah, there's probably some truth to that. But in the end, we got here because of a total failure of Washington policy on many, many levels. Now, this was kind of funny. This turned out not to be true, but it made the rounds. Trump did not actually truth this. Many Hollywood liberals have taken our actions to secure the border very personally and are no doubt surprised that the government finally did something after years of inaction. Actress Selena Gomes, best known as the third amigo on that murder mystery show that Chevy Chase wouldn't touch, posted a video to social media where she was in tears over the deportations. Selena, these are people who broke the law by coming here. Some have also committed other horrible crimes. I hope Selena is just as upset about the victims of these crimes. Focus on your career. The people want a sequel to Spring Breakers.
So to be clear, that was a satire post.
That was a satire. That was, he didn't really say that.
He didn't really say that.
Flavor Flav was on Team Selena. Team Selena Gomez. Again, that woman is always so brave to share her truth, and so many are quick to bully her. Interesting supporter. I had to go back and make sure that was really his profile and not a parody account. Geraldo Rivera. Selena Gomez should be commended for her compassion and sincerity. People attacking her on social media should be ashamed. You can disagree without being disagreeable. We need comprehensive immigration reform. We can't arrest our way out of our immigration crisis. Bravo, Selena. But this was more certainly of what you saw in the response. Selena Gomez is a billionaire who is surrounded by security, has zero idea of how dangerous the country has become due to illegal immigration, doesn't care enough about American women or children to know they've been getting bleeped and murdered at the hands of her people, and is now crying from the comfort of her mansion about how we're all horrible people for wanting a safer country. Disgusting behavior. Where were you crying, misspelled, when Laken Riley was being bleeped for 18 minutes and then murdered? So you're seeing a lot more of that. And Candace Owens I feel like she's kind of getting into our territory here. She worked a bit. Candace Owens worked a bit. You can be the judge of her comedy chops.
Picturing her setting up for that makes me laugh, right? So you have a feeling coming on. Imagine you in your life, like something happens, I don't know, you start crying hysterically, like nobody grabs their cell phone. Think about the steps there, right? I'm sad. I open my Instagram.
Not bad.
My life.
All right.
I'm so sorry.
For someone mentored by the least funny Jew in the world, Ben Shapiro, that's not bad.
Sure.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, I don't know that she'll be starring in Raisin in the Sun anytime soon.
No, I mean,
It's
if
weird. It's the moment of consciousness that is weird for me, that you're thinking about your family. It tells me you're not really sad, because when you cry and you're actually super upset about something, the last thing you're thinking about is social media. You're not trying to capture social media. So this only works if you're being filmed. Like, okay, if you're on.
I mean, she's got a point. She's got a point. All right. So finally, this was on Hannity. Homan was asked about this again. This is what he had to say.
Borders are Tom Homan. First, I guess I got to ask your reaction to Selena Gomez. I didn't see any postings of tears for all of the women and American citizens murdered, all the people that were raped, including children, all the other victims of violent crime, the American taxpayers putting out billions of dollars. I didn't see any tears on any of those issues. What was that all about?
Look, that was the best monologue I heard you do in years. That was your straight on. I can't say it better myself. We got a 250,000 Americans dead from fentanyl across that open border. Where's the tears for them? I've met with hundreds of angels, moms and dads who were separated from their children because they buried them because they were killed by illegal alien. We got 500,000 children who are sex trafficked into this country, separated from their families, put in the hands of criminal cartels to be smuggled into the country. This administration can't find over 300,000. Where's the tears for them? Excellent monologue. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. So at least at this stage, while the focus, if not always the effect, is on criminals, yeah, that's a loser. That's a loser. If you look at public opinion on this, a vast majority of Americans, there's a New York Times poll, not a Fox poll, 87% support deporting undocumented immigrants with a criminal record, which Mr. Trump has said would be one of the first orders of business he carries out. This is interesting. Most adults favor deporting immigrants living in the U.S. legally who have been convicted of a violent crime. Forget about illegally, legally living in the United States. They think 52% think you should be deported if you've been convicted of a violent crime. So yeah, this is why Selena Gomez, I'm sure, wound up taking that down, because you probably had 90% pushback, even from her own followers. That is not an argument I think anyone wants to make. Now, if there's going to be an opening for changing the conversation, it's going to be stories like what you sent me. The guy, there was a story, a guy voted for Trump and his Venezuelan wife got deported.
Right.
Those are going to be the things that will be more, but it's not an accident that they're, and I'm not saying they're making this up. I've followed this kind of thing a little more than a lot of people on our side of the ideological space do. Yeah, man. I mean, there have been problems with human trafficking and this kind of thing. And they're going to lean into that, and they're going to win that argument for right now. And the last thing that's going to help is, of all things, a Hollywood celebrity jumping into it. Although we did talk about this online, and you mentioned the Palestine angle. Apparently, she did speak out about that enough that Joan Rivers mocked her as being uneducated for it.
Well, this was been years ago, right?
This was well, it's when she was still alive.
Genocide, right? So,
yeah.
So, I mean, my initial reaction to that video was, we have not seen a single celebrity, not one, do a crying selfie video about Gaza in the past 15 months. Not a single one. I've not seen one person put themselves in front of a camera crying about Gaza. We've all been crying into our phones about Gaza, but we've not seen a single celebrity actually cry about it on camera, because there'd be something it would cost them something to actually do that. So no, I don't give you any courage points unless you're willing to do that. Now, I don't think she was yucking it up for the camera. I think she probably did feel that way. I think that it's what complicates this for me. And yes, I mean, I can, as an objective analyst, I can tell you it's a political loser at this moment because of everything Russ said. So I'm not arguing with you. But what makes this a complicated moment is, okay, so you have Holman getting up here saying that we're starting out with criminals, public safety threats. He's promising to expand it beyond that. Right. I mean, he is saying he will. So unless Trump is going to call it off because he thinks it would be a political problem past the public safety threats, if you will, we don't know that for sure. What we also know is that, you know, there have been raids on people who are not public safety threats. Now, the question is that part of Holman's operation? Because don't forget, ICE operates independently. Holman is just the border czar. He's not the head of ICE. Right. So does ICE have a process of getting warrants and going after people irrespective of this big push, right? In other words, these two things can happen on the same timeline, not one necessarily being coordinated by the other. Like, did Holman have anything to do with the raid on the fish market in New Jersey, which happened without a warrant? Probably not. That was probably an ICE operation. Now, did ICE feel that they had a little bit of liberty to play fast and loose with the process because of the political climate? Very possible. The video that I sent you, which we'll probably cover on Thursday, of a guy who voted for Donald Trump. He lives in Florida, and then ICE comes to his house and takes his wife away. They deport his wife, and he's telling Trump, well, wait a minute, she's not a public safety threat. Let's make a deal. Let's talk. Let's work this out. That probably happened irrespective of the Holman operations, right?
Well,
however, there's a mix here because you have some people who are trying to put out there, well, no, we're only going after public safety threats now. Then on the other hand, you have a lot of chuds just posting as wins any deportation that happens anywhere for any reason, right? So if they're going to take credit for that, then it's kind of understandable that you would think this is all part of one coordinated effort, right? Because you're seeing these two types of raids happen at once, and social media seems to be, for the most part, unified in their support for them. So when you look at that pattern, you can kind of understand how people might think this is all coming from the top down. Whereas in reality, it's probably true that some of those ICE raids would have happened even had Kamala won because they have their own process, right? So the point is, when you have a climate like this where the majority opinion is pro-deportation, yeah, it's not so easy to tell, it's not so easy to tell where one operation ends and the other one begins.
Yeah, we talked about this before. You know, when Giuliani was the mayor, they never admitted that they imposed a quota on the cops, but they clearly did. These guys were clearly desperate to show that they had filled their quota when they came back. And you could tell by the crazy things they would ticket and arrest people for. I literally, when Giuliani was mayor, I literally got a ticket stepping out of a taxi and walking across the sidewalk to my front door with a beer. The cop did a U-turn and came back like he saw me walking with a shotgun because he needed to fill that quota. Trump said he was disappointed by the initial numbers, which were around 1,000. So I think what's happening with things like the Newark fish market, he said he wants to see at least 1,200-1,500 arrests a day. That's what happens. You put that kind of quota on them, they're going to start grabbing everybody.
Okay, well, in that case, then you can't say
I think
it's
that's
only
the
public.
reason.
Well, in that case, then, if that's the case, I hadn't heard that he wanted the numbers padded. But if Trump wants the numbers padded, then at that point, you can't say, well, it's only public safety threats, right? That's what they're going to say, but that's not accurate.
You could tell them that's what you want, but if you put ICE in a position where you want them to make a number, I mean, criminals don't just walk around and go, hey, I'm a criminal. It's not easy to get those numbers just grabbing criminals, right?
Right. So what that means is that in practice, they're not just grabbing criminals, even at this point.
I think that's true. I think that's clearly true.
Look, I heard. It
might not be policy, just like it wasn't policy in New York that you had to ticket everybody and make a quota, but it was policy.
Right.
Right.
So
there's policy and there's policy, right?
Well, right. Well, yeah. So in that case, then Holman is really not telling the whole truth when he says, "Well, these are just public safety threats at this point." I know of a person.
I think that's probably true.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who they are. I would of course say something if I did. Ha ha, wink wink, just kidding. But no, I know of a person who knows someone, because I live in, I have a lot of people in the New York metro area, of a guy who saw, ICE checking paperwork on a commuter bus from Newark into Manhattan. They turned around and went home, right? Because they didn't, they would have gotten caught. And so they're not looking for people with violent criminal records. They're looking for anybody. They're looking for anybody. And when you talk about this Homan guy is running his own specific operations. Maybe he is just specifically looking for.
I get the impression he believes in what he's saying.
Yeah,
that in the end, the horrors of illegal immigration is what he's shutting down. Are you going to see a tremendous drop in fentanyl and crime? It remains to be seen. I wouldn't say it's out of the question that you'll see some kind of a drop,
right?
Particularly in human trafficking.
Yep, could definitely be. But my initial reaction to her video is, again, I just can't. It reminded me I haven't seen a single celebrity cry for Gaza in 15 months.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right, and it's definitely one of those people. People are very over Hollywood celebrities making these kinds of displays on any subject. It's like read the room, read the room. Nobody wants to hear from you people right now.
Well,
shut up and sing. Shut up and sing.
It's not going to. It's just at this point, whatever you think about it. Yeah, I think it is a loser because they have this propaganda point. Now, at some point, you have to counter that, which is why, whatever. Like, I don't really, to me, the fact that she did it, as you said, just because the culture has turned against celebrities in such a dramatic way, yeah, probably did more harm than good. Do I fault her for doing it? Not really. I mean, because I think at some point, like, maybe instead of cry, maybe talk about. I mean, you're a billionaire. This is the other thing. You have resources. You're worth $1 billion. Like, if this upsets you, then let's do something about it. If they are breaking their promise to go after criminals first, then that should be resisted in a serious way. And it looks like at some level they are. It's not quite clear where in the chain of command that is being broken. But it seems like they are taking this momentum and blurring the lines in ways that they can get away with in this moment.
Well, because remember, the general edict is to deport every illegal immigrant. So it's not a problem if they grab an illegal immigrant. It's just not the focus.
It's not the.
They're not being told don't
operation.
Grab people like that.
Right. Exactly. It's not the order of operations. Right. Now, the guy whose wife got deported, you would have to assume because it wasn't reported.
That's strange. Yeah.
Well, you'd have to assume in that case they probably had a warrant, right? Because otherwise it would have been reported with that story that they didn't have one, which we'll look into that because we're going to cover that more thoroughly on Thursday. With the fish market thing, they didn't have a warrant, which they're not supposed to go into a private business without a warrant. So what was that about? Was that just a shock and awe thing? Well, whatever. In this blitz of chaos, we think there's 3 people in here, and we're going to go in and drag them out.
Well, again, this is why I listen to conservatives. Foreman was saying, well, the whole point of this is to get them to leave on their own. That's the whole point. Like, that's why they're making it this visible. That's why they're going out, as we'll see in our next segment, with Dr. Phil.
Right.
Because they want them just to leave. And also for people thinking about coming to say, well, I'm not going to go there.
Exactly. All right. It's kind of it's the different piece, but same themes. So let's not break the flow. Let's go right into Dr. Phil.
All right. So, hey, anyone who is a fan of dystopian sci-fi like RoboCop, this is a very RoboCop kind of a turn that you would have this half-ass TV psychiatrist whose whole career is owed to somebody whose role in Hollywood seems to be to rehabilitate the image of groomers. The Dr. Phil would be the guy going out on these raids. So here is his very weird to me announcement that he's going to be on the team.
To meet with Tom Homan, and we're going to brief what's happening tomorrow, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, go over all the security protocol, because it's a pretty high risk mission that we're going on. This truly is a targeted ICE mission because they're not sweeping neighborhoods like people are trying to imply. I know that because I've been involved in this heading into this. They've identified 270 high-value targets. And what I mean by that is these are known criminals and terrorists. We're talking about murderers, child traffickers, child rapists. We're talking about bad actors, both in the countries they've come from and since they've been here in the United States. Some of these people have 12, 15 arrests, indictments, some convictions in their home countries and here.
All right, so you get the idea. So this is the video that really went around where, they were arresting a fan of the playground, as we say, to not get a strike. All right, so let's see what happened.
Seda. Seda what? You have a person last name? Sam. Seda Sam? Yes.
Where are you from?
Where I was born or where I'm from?
Where are you born?
Thailand.
You've been deported before from the United States?
No.
Never been deported?
I've been in the system before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you been charged with
Charged where?
before?
I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm gonna talk to my lawyer.
Yeah. Are you a citizen?
My mom's a citizen.
Your mother's a citizen?
Yes.
But you're not?
Nope.
But you've never been deported before?
You Dr. Phil. You look like Dr. Phil.
Yeah? How do you know me?
No, I seen Dr. Phil, you know.
Should ask for his
TV.
autograph.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Phil's gonna cut a bitch here. So yeah, in his in his video saying he's gonna go out. Oh yeah, they're going to put Dr. Phil at risk, like he's going on a risky mission. Oh, this is really dangerous. I am sure you got 10 guys, with sniper rifles to make sure nothing happens to Dr. Phil during this publicity stunt.
This is some crazy shit.
How do you know? How do you know me? How do you know me? Perhaps I helped you quit smoking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is an example of sanctuary cities, right? We got an illegal alien convicted of sex crimes involving children. He's walking the streets of Chicago. Again, the downfall, the problem with the sanctuary city, that people like us walking the street rather than local law enforcement working with federal agents. This is what we're dealing with.
Yeah. You've been charged with sex crimes with children?
Not really.
Not really? And never been deported?
Nope.
Huh.
Let's take him in and process and lock him up.
Got it, sir. All right. Can you get a transport vehicle? Working on it. Okay.
Now, the comments on this, unlike Ms. Gomez's video, were overwhelmingly positive. This is pretty much what you saw. Who would have thought Dr. Phil would be out on the streets with Tom Homan? This is the best timeline. Dr. Phil and Tom Homan, the send 'em all home buddy movie of the century.
I'm
So
sorry. This is
people
like all
are
of
very
America.
gleeful about this.
All of
Go ahead.
America is the basement of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. Like all of America, or is not the basement, the dining room. Like all of America is the dining room around that table. Like how sick do you have to be to actually like find that unironically entertaining? Like I find it entertaining. I look at that and I'm like, man, Idiocracy gave us too much credit, right? I mean, Idiocracy was too optimistic. Some fucking daytime huckster doctor going out with the borders are for the cameras, for entertainment, asking this criminal alien where he's from, what he did. Like this is Cops. That's what Cops was. That was the Cops TV show. That's Cops. And yet this is somehow unironically entertaining to people. People actually watch this and don't have the self-awareness to understand that they're living in a just comically devolved dystopia of a country. That's what that says to me.
Well, it's
Dr.
not.
Phil? Dr. Phil. It'd be one thing, it'd be one thing if you had this would be pretty fucking ridiculous too. But if you had like Steven Seagal, at least that guy's an actual like cop, right? What does he do? He does some bullshit. Doesn't he work in law enforcement? I think he did for a while. I'm pretty sure he does.
No, the guy he worked with the mob.
Steven Seagal? No, check that. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure
Steven Seagal. He had a whole court case because the mob was trying to blackmail him because they put up money for one of his early movies.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the mob was like they were not blackmailing him; they were extorting him.
Do I have the wrong guy? Chat, let me know. Steven Seagal.
I don't think so. Look, yeah, it is very dystopian, but it's not an accident that is the video they released. What do you think? They didn't get anybody who, stole something, who was guilty of a more minor thing. It's not an accident that the clip that's out there is the fan of the playground. Like, who's going to argue with that? That's why I'm saying the ridiculous element here is, it was Dr. Phil have to do with it, but that is by design. They want these things to go viral, I believe, to make their job easier so that a lot of people just leave on their own. And at the same time, in terms of establishing and maintaining public support for what they're doing, yeah, the Dr. Phil element is ridiculous, but why was that guy out? Why was he out? Why is he walking the streets? It's a legitimate question. And they're forcing that question. I think part of what you are seeing here is whatever the liberals thought they were doing, whatever the legal theory of what they were doing was, it's pretty shocking how they handled this issue when you look at situations like that. Like, that is just common sense. Like, you ask any person. Yeah, so an illegal immigrant wanted for being a fan of the playground, walking around, just walking around the streets. Yeah, they have a legitimate point there. And it's a point that was given to them by the liberal establishment. For whatever reason, I don't even understand what the logic was behind running the immigration system that way in regards to this. You're not just talking about why do we have all these workers. You're talking like, it's a legitimate question. Why is this guy out? Why is he walking the streets?
All right. So I Googled it. Yeah. So Seagal was a reserve deputy sheriff in Louisiana and Arizona. And
was he?
He had the realities TV series Steven Seagal Lawman, which followed his time in law enforcement. So, yeah. So he was, not full-time apparently, but reserve sheriff.
Hang on. You're talking about after his movie career?
Yeah. Like fairly recently.
Oh, so not before.
No,
he
that wasn't like his background, but yeah,
that's why I was like, nah, I think it was. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you took him out, that would be pretty ridiculous too. But to take Dr. Phil around, this would be like, Hillary Clinton taking Oprah around, or Joe Biden taking Oprah around on law enforcement. Like, it's reducing it to such spectacle. It's such spectacle.
Well, that's
right?
where it's the dystopian
so
sci-fi element. It's Running Man and Fahrenheit 451. It kind of has that vibe to it.
Well, yeah, and the point of that is to create broad-based anti-immigrant sentiment because they're not going to stop at just criminals. That is their plan until they are reined in. That's why I did the Mississippi segment, because that's an example of taking it to an extreme where even some of Libs of TikTok's followers are like, whoa, that's too much. That's what it's going to take to rein any of this in at all, because what they're clearly doing, while they are able to say that they are only rounding up criminals, which we know that's not true. We know that they have done house raids and that they've done business raids, at least one without a warrant. So, they are laying the groundwork right now by saying that this is only about criminals. They're trying to win over as much public support as possible and gin up as much broad-based anti-immigrant sentiment as possible, so that when they do take it to the next step, they have the political capital to withstand that project.
I think
right?
you're
If they can get
absolutely right.
support up into the 60s for deporting everybody, they're like, yeah, fuck it, we'll go for everybody. Worst case, we lose 10%, we're still at 55. That's how politics works. You build political capital to spend it on the more controversial parts of what you want to do. That's what I think is happening
I
here.
think it
While
is in
they're
the
able to
60s.
say
I
that
thi-
they're
I think
rounding
it's-
up criminals, they're going to try and broaden the case to the American public that everyone has to go. And then they're going to go for everyone. And it's only when people say, no, that's too much, only when they say their safe word that they'll stop. And not a second before.
I believe it's 66%. Around 66% think all illegal immigrants should be deported.
Yeah, well, we showed the average of polls last show. It was, we ranged from, like mid-high 50s to mid-60s. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's about, it's 60 or more.
So as of now, they have that support for that project. We'll
do.
see how, And I think you're right. Starting this way in terms of building support, it's smart. It's politically smart.
Yeah, we're going to bring Dr. Phil out. We're going to make this really mainstream. This way, when we do stuff that's more controversial, we'll have 10 percentage points to kind of play with, right? I think that's the plan. I think that is the plan. All right. Why don't we go to a word from our supporters? All right. So, hey, folks, if you like what we do here, you can help us do more of it by going to dissidents.com for do dissidents. What is it? That's dodissidents.locals.com. Sorry, I was reading the address of the supporter link. That won't do you any good unless you want to see your name play on a loop. You can just go to dodissidents.com/supporters and you can watch this. This is a public link. This is not a video. So if you like seeing your name up in lights, you could see at any time if you become a member. That's a selling point. We should pitch that as a selling point. You can just watch your name on the screen on a loop if you join our Substack, our Patreon, or our locals. But dodissidents.substack.com, patreon.com/dodissidents, or dodissidents.locals.com. That's where you can go if you like what we do and you want to help us do more of it. So we had a great supporter stream yesterday afternoon. Big turnout for that supporter stream yesterday afternoon. So if you are a member, you have access to the full back catalog of supporter exclusive content. You get bonus live streams every month. You get your name up in lights. You get call-in access to the post-show Q&As once a week every Sunday. You also get access to Film Club nights. Film Club nights are interactive movie screening nights that are for members only. And so tomorrow at 7 p.m. we have movie nights. We settled on a face in the crowd for this movie club night, correct?
Yes, a face in the crowd, which I think is very timely. And I think I see a lot of this book in it. This is going to come up a lot in my personal analysis of what you see in that movie.
What was that, Virtue Hoarders?
Yeah, Virtue Hoarders by Catherine Liu. Because the heroes of the movie are the post-New Deal PMC. And even then, they have a deep suspicion. The whole movie has that point of view. They have a deep suspicion of populism. So that's always been there. The thing is, their program was not neoliberalism then. It was the New Deal. So you didn't get it from both ends like you do now. Here, they hate populism, and they also don't want to give you a living wage. At least back then, they actually wanted to give you a living wage tied to inflation. But that basic suspicion of, the smooth talking rural type, that's very much in that movie. I believe they either use the word influencer or almost something very, very close, like influence peddler or something. It's very interesting how close the issues they're talking about are to the times we're living in.
Yeah, so that'll be at 7 p.m. tomorrow, and then we'll take some calls after for a discussion. So those are not traditional film screenings. Those are screenings with running commentary that we do. All right, folks. Well, let me give you a word from one of our dissident sponsors here, DJ Vulture. So DJ Vulture is an artist, producer, and DJ in Detroit, Michigan. His debut album, Rise, is a politically charged sonic exploration that traverses multiple genres. Tracks like Politrix, If You Want to Get Hurt, and Indira Chain invoke the memory of Public Enemy, Wu-Tang Clan, and Company Flow. While pieces such as 1849, Brainwashed Pink, and Cannibal Zombie are brutally industrial, reminiscent of Skinny Puppy and Ministry. Others, such as I Will Not, Circles in the Sky, and Singularity, are ethereal, dreamy, and hallucinogenic. With Rise, DJ Vulture has expanded beyond your typical electronic music to include live vocals, guitars, synths, percussion, and of course, it wouldn't be a DJ record without turntablism, so help support the underground and pick up the soundtrack for the revolution, Rise, on Bandcamp for $10. We make it super simple for you, though. If you want to check out DJ Vulture's music, go to dodissidents.com/DJ and check it out. That is a hyperlink we custom made for DJ Vulture. So thank you for your support, DJ, and please support DJ. Go and check it out and take a listen. dodissidents.com/DJ. All righty. Let's see what else we got here in the Super Chat Factory. Let's see. We got Ryan Spence. Hate to agree with her, but Megyn Kelly made a good point about people putting a camera in front of them and bawling like Gomez. Really shines light on how social media psychologically damages people. Yeah. That's what Candace Owens said, too. Eric Suarez, what is this nonsense about migrants bleeping children and fentanyl killing Americans? Is it like fentanyl crawls into people's noses by itself? Thank you, Eric Suarez. Fentanyl is legally prescribed medication, says DC. Sparky, Dr. Phil should have said, book 'em, Dano. Yeah. Yeah. Your reference, says JoJo in 3D, your reference to Texas Chainsaw while I'm playing the Texas Chainsaw game, listening to you, LOL. Oh, cool. Look at that.
Move,
cool
creep.
Yeah, there you go. All right, Hillary Hinton, Steven Seagal, illegal alien bounty hunter reality show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you go. Bounty hunting is just another awesome public-private partnership. Yes, thank you, Eric Huso. Yes, public-private partnership. Violent Fembot, help the workers, help the homeless, help the elderly, help the veterans, stick it to Wall Street, deport the illegals. Ken Min, Selena Gomez also deleted Free Palestine. She's a billionaire coward. She's a mediocre talent anyway. The celebrity equivalent of artichoke pizza.
Artichoke pizza.
Thank you. Did she delete that? Yeah, I just noticed that no crying videos for Palestine.
Yeah, man, I saw that in my research. I just didn't want to complicate the segment because I didn't see the tweet. I saw Joan Rivers. Oh, does she know how to spell Palestinian?
Yeah. Well,
good fucking riddance to that old cunt.
Yeah, too bad we lost her. Larry Ellison loves Israel more than all his children combined. Thank you, Kenman. China Shill. Sorry, Selena. Americans are too psychologically whatever. We can't read that out loud to give a shit. Even when they're getting what they wanted for years. For example, Obama. Like, seriously, if you're not emotionally affected by this or actively cheer it on, you're a psychopath. Not sorry. No need to be sorry. I don't blame you. I agree. Ellen Jimerson, all during Obama's 8 years, there were quotas for 400,000 deportations a year and to keep 34,000 for profit in prison beds filled every day. There you go. There you go. There you have it. Thank you, Ellen. Roger Waters always speaks up. Thank you, Eric Huso. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
China Shill.
I saw him because, we were covering the Sylvester Stallone, John Voight, Mel Gibson, Space Cowboys Dream Team the other night. And I saw Roger Waters' solo concert for Radio Chaos. And that's when Stallone was making all of those Reagan-esque Cold War era movies. And Roger Waters went off about Sylvester Stallone during that concert.
All right. Interesting. China Shill, Phil came in his pants at the thought of living out his childhood fantasy of terrorizing brown people. Fake badass. Yeah. Seemed like he was.
Yeah, you could say, how do you know me?
Yeah,
how you know me?
What do you mean you watch my show? I don't attract an audience like you, do I? Eric Huso, Jimmy thinks that's his childhood home in Dr. Phil segment. Oh, no shit. That was Chicago? That's right. That was Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
Kid
Chicago.
texted me. Because I know there were Boston and Chicago raids. I wasn't sure which one that was. Okay. All right. China Shill. Thank you, Keaton. It is disgusting. Thank you, China Shill. Appreciate that. Well, China Shill's got the wind at his back today. That DeepSeek, what is it called? DeepSeek, right?
DeepSeek.
Yeah, DeepSeek. That's right. That got him in a fighting mood. I like that. All right, let's move on. All right, final segment of the day, folks. Final segment of the day. We begin the show with a serious segment today, and we end the show with a serious segment today. Yesterday marked the 80th anniversary of the Liberation of Auschwitz by Captain America. The Russians had nothing to do with it. That was when Captain America came down and liberated Auschwitz. That happened 80 years ago yesterday. It was International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Benjamin Netanyahu tweets out, on International Holocaust Remembrance Day, I call on all civilized nations to confront anti-Semitism wherever it appears, on college campuses, city streets, or international forums like the ICC. Wow. Wow, wow.
Where the fuck do you get the balls?
Founded in the shadow of the Holocaust, the ICC has disgraced itself with anti-Semitic attacks on Israel. Hamas are the new Nazis, and we are committed to defeating them once and for all. The Jewish state will always stand as a safe haven for Jews worldwide. Yeah, the ICC was formed after the Holocaust to prevent future Holocausts at the hands of, say, you.
Well, and I'm glad he's saying it out loud. That they look, man. He's saying Hamas. He means the Palestinians. This is the Israeli view. They projected the crimes of the Nazis onto the Arab world.
Exactly. So I had to tweet out here, peak Zionism is using Holocaust Remembrance Day to malign the ICC for prosecuting Israeli war crimes. Now, if you want an example of Judaism at its best for International Holocaust Remembrance Day, here's Yanis Varoufakis tweets this out. This was at a pro-Palestine demonstration days before Remembrance Day, where a Holocaust survivor gets up at the microphone and makes a reference to the upcoming commemoration of the Auschwitz liberation.
We want to prove by our presence that it is not true that these demonstrations are unsafe places for Jews. Quite the contrary. Quite the contrary. We are so warmly welcomed on every occasion. We have hugs and kisses even. No marriage proposal yet.
See, Jewish humor to go with it.
I think we are succeeding in undermining these lies. And the other important consideration is in a few days' time we will have Holocaust Memorial Day. And we protest against the misuse of the memory of the Holocaust. Those who not long ago, I think Netanyahu at Yad Vashem said, never again is now. This is an undermining of the true meaning of the phrase. The true meaning of the phrase is that those who suffered the Holocaust atrocities and mass killings do not want to consider or be participating in any other similar act. Never again those genocides, and we are against genocide against everybody.
See, that is courage and grace in action. He's this guy survived hell on earth at the death camps. He's on crutches now, gets up to speak at a pro-Palestine rally and references the upcoming anniversary and speaks very, very well about the misremembering of the Holocaust history, not misremembering it in a Daryl Cooper fashion, but misremembering the lessons, mislearning, I should say, the lessons of the Holocaust, which is, of course, never again for anybody. So Z-Squirrel puts out a thread here. So that sort of tackles the Israeli hypocrisy, which is very surface level, not too subtle. The Israelis are not known for subtlety. But the other facet of this, of course, is that my wise-ass jokes aside, it was not Captain America who liberated the camps, but it was, of course, the Soviets. So today is the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz by the Red Army, which the Israeli death cult and Zionists are desperate to hijack and weaponize to launder their genocidal mania. Here are some deeply moving personal recollections of liberation by Soviet troops. To the extent that we can access the Red Army's views, it is through memoirs and letters. Vasily Gromadsky, an officer of the 60th Army, offered this description. I realized they were the prisoners and not workers. So I called out, "You are free, come out." They began rushing towards us in a big crowd. They were weeping, embracing us, and kissing us. I felt a grievance on behalf of mankind that these fascists had made such a mockery of us. It roused me and all the soldiers to go and quickly destroy them and send them to hell, meaning the Nazis, of course. Georgy Elitsevetsky, another of the first Soviet soldiers to enter the camp, admitted in 1980 that my blood runs cold when I mention Auschwitz even now. He described the liberation in dramatic detail. When I entered the barrack, I saw living skeletons lying on three-tiered bunks. As in fog, I hear my soldiers saying, "You are free, comrades." I sense that they do not understand us and begin speaking to them in Russian, Polish, German, Ukrainian dialects. Unbuttoning my leather jacket, I show them my medals. Then I use Yiddish. The reaction is unpredictable. They think that I am provoking them. They begin to hide. And only when I said to them, "Do not be afraid. I am a colonel of Soviet army and a Jew. We have come to liberate you." Finally, as if the barrier collapsed, they rushed towards us, shouting, fell on their knees, kissed the flaps of our overcoats, and threw their arms around our legs. And we could not move, stood motionless, while unexpected tears ran down our cheeks. So just to kind of fuse these two topics, you know, that image of the Jews at first hiding when they saw them because they didn't know if they meant them well or not. This is why I say, as a Jew myself, I have some license to say this, that Israelis are traumatized by that. That is what makes them act in ways that, frankly, normal people do not act, because they carry a psychological trauma and shame at people who hid, whose instinct was to hide.
Right.
And they are so desperate to overcome that shame, which they should not feel. Of course, if you were put through that, of course, your first instinct is to hide when someone official looking comes in, obviously. So they shouldn't feel that shame, but they do. And they channel that shame through violence and rage. And that explains a lot of their psyche. Anything to add before we go on?
Yeah, you know, we with Gilgamesh, we were talking about a movie, Speak No Evil, which the American version, they messed the whole thing up. But it was a very interesting Nordic film, Scandinavian film, where, you know, I'm not going to spoil it for anyone who wants to see it, but this couple is horribly abused. And he says to him at the end, "Why did you do this to us?" And he says, because you let us. And kind of the underlying message is, it's very Sam Peckinpah. You were a victim because you're too civilized. You were too civilized to react with the violence that you should have. That is a message that Israelis have internalized. That to them, never again means you're going to victimize others before you let anyone victimize you.
Exactly. They meant never again should we be victimized, as opposed to the true lesson of the Holocaust is never again should a crime of this scale be allowed to happen. Right. And so they go ahead and they commit a crime of comparable scale.
Right.
And they don't think of that as a violation of the lesson of the crime that was done to their people. The greatest accomplishment of the Soviet Union remains its destruction of the Nazi Empire, sacrificing 27 million lives. Red Army Marshal Zhukov famously said, "We liberated Europe from fascism, but they will never forgive us for it." And they never did. You know, Putin gave a speech saying that one of the quotes that he gave was, if you held a moment of silence, 1 minute silence for every Russian who died to liberate the camps and to defeat the Nazis, you would be silent for 51 years straight. 51 years. If you gave a moment of silence, 1 minute of silence for every Russian casualty of World War II, you'd be silent for 51 years. This is from 1938. The people you see here in the screenshot are among the brave and heroic Red Army soldiers who went to the front to fight and destroy the Nazi beast and liberate Auschwitz and other concentration camps. Meanwhile, the New York Times was writing puff pieces about Hitler, dismissing his virulent anti-Semitism as mere populist rhetoric and praising him as a great leader who would bring calm and stability to Germany and Europe. So here's an op-ed from Thomas Friedman's uncle, apparently, who was got him the gig. Just kidding. But several reliable, well-informed sources confirm the idea that Hitler's
a Safaka
he
lemur.
was like the Safaka lemur,
Like you go
sideways
through
bipedal,
Europe.
hopping lemur. Yeah, exactly. But several reliable, well-informed sources confirm the idea that Hitler's anti-Semitism was not so genuine or violent as it sounded, and that he was merely using anti-Semitic propaganda as a bait to catch masses of followers and keep them aroused, enthusiastic, and in line for the time when his organization is perfected and sufficiently powerful to be employed effectively for political purposes. Well, it turns out he meant it. He meant it. Unless you talk to Daryl Cooper, he might say
Unless
he
you
didn't
talk to
mean
him.
it. He'll tell you it was an accident.
Well, this is it. It's not an accident that if you watch more of that interview that Cooper did with Tucker, he starts talking about Soviet medical experiments as the worst crimes ever committed, because people like Cooper are really continuing the work of the New York Times and the American State Department at that time, which had many old money wasps that were sympathetic to the Nazi project. It's continuing that narrative. Yeah, the Nazis might be bad, but look at these communists.
Right.
Look at these communists. Exactly. It's all about throwing. That's the issue. Churchill shouldn't have stopped Hitler because he was fighting the communists. He doesn't put it that way, but that's essentially the argument.
Right. That's the bargain in their head.
It's an old argument.
Right. That's their bargain, is that there's such virulent anti-communists that they even go as far as to say, well, Hitler was, if not a necessary evil, an evil we could negotiate with if it means, vanquishing those commies, right? So Z Squirrel continues, and the feeling was mutual. Hitler loved the U.S. and its racist Jim Crow eugenics laws and ordered Nazi lawyers and judges to study and copy it. Facts, yes. Once they did, they realized it went too far even for them, as detailed in this thread. Nazi lawyers carefully studied how the United States, despite its pretense of equal citizenship, had effectively denied that status to those who were not white. Yes, that's true. And finally here, the ideology of Nazi Germany thus proceeded and succeeded and is now carried out by the U.S., NATO, Israeli, Zionist Empire, the Fourth Reich, which invites literal Nazi SS officers to their parliaments and Knessets to cheer, applaud, and celebrate them. Ukraine's Azov Battalion Regiment visits Israel. Mariupol is our Masada, bringing the receipts. Of course, the Nazi fighter. Yeah, of course, the Nazi fighter visited the Canadian Parliament. That was a big story. Yes.
I didn't know about this.
Yep.
That the Azov Battalion
went to Israel. Yep.
You can't make this shit up.
So here is Zelensky, who was present at the ceremony. There were very few survivors of the Auschwitz concentration camp left. Today, they spoke to the leaders of almost 60 countries and to the entire world. They spoke about how ruthless people can be when their minds are poisoned by hatred, about what the camp's prisoners went through, and about their liberation 80 years ago on January 27th. For thousands of Jewish survivors, this day became their second birthday, but millions died. Today, together with the world, Ukraine honors the memory of the Holocaust victims and condemns Nazism. Everyone who invests in hatred will lose. Everyone who saves lives will earn the world's gratitude. So that was his statement on the ceremony. There he is at the ceremony. But of course, disinvited from the ceremony because of their war with Ukraine is Russia. So Russia focuses on Soviet victims of World War II as officials not invited to Auschwitz ceremony. So this is so topsy-turvy, I had to write this down so I read it because I would trip over myself if I didn't. So the world we live in 2025 is you've got the Jewish state invoking the memory of the Holocaust in order to disparage the international body seeking to hold them accountable for the modern-day Holocaust that they're committing. Meanwhile, you have the people who ended the Holocaust disinvited from the remembrance ceremony because they're at war with many of those whose ancestors committed the Holocaust. That's the world in 2025.
Yep.
I mean, wow, what crazy times we live in. Where's the lie?
We got on the wrong side of a quantum split, my friend.
Yep, that's right. On the edge of St. Petersburg stands a dramatic memorial more than 40 meters high. At the very top is the figure of a mother with her children. Down below, depicted in bronze, are real stories of human suffering. At the bottom of some steps burns an eternal flame surrounded by the names of Nazi concentration and extermination camps. Auschwitz, Sobibor, Belzec, Treblinka. Terrifying words synonymous with the Holocaust. They're referring to this piece of artwork here. Yet this is not a Holocaust memorial as such. Its official title is the Memorial to Soviet Civilians Who Fell Victim to the Nazi Genocide. Russian President Vladimir Putin unveiled the monument last year on the January 27th, a date with a double historical significance for Russia. On this day in 1944, Soviet forces broke the almost 900-day siege of Leningrad. Exactly 1 year later, the Red Army entered the gates of the Auschwitz death camp. It is because of the Red Army's liberation of Auschwitz that 27 January was later declared International Holocaust Remembrance Day. But when he opened the memorial to Soviet civilians, Vladimir Putin spoke not of the Holocaust, but of the genocide of the Soviet people. Okay, so this is where you get some of the BBC sort of Western NATO propaganda tinged into this piece. He argued that the Nazis' aim had been to seize our country's rich natural resources and territories, as well as to exterminate the majority of its citizens.
No, it was an accident of logistics.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
He's got to watch some Daryl Cooper.
Yeah, he's got to listen to some Martyr Maid. That's right.
Yeah.
But then, they have to qualify that. It's not that Russia has gone silent on the Holocaust. In the run-up to the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, there have been several Holocaust-related events across the country. And in a message to mark the 80th anniversary, President Putin wrote, in January 1945, the Red Army liberated the Auschwitz concentration camp and revealed to mankind the truth of the crimes of the Nazis and their accomplices who exterminated millions of Jews, Russians, Roma, and representatives of other nationalities. But in Russia today, there is a discernible shift in focus away from the Holocaust to how the Soviet people as a whole, including Russian people, suffered in World War II. Well, I wonder why they would put the emphasis on their own sacrifice, because their own sacrifice was monumental. As I mentioned, if you held a minute of silence for every World War II Russian casualty, you'd be silent for a full 51 years straight. That, and the world not only never thanked them for liberating the camps, they continued to punish them. We had a Cold War for decades after. So it's not surprising that they would put the emphasis on the loss of their own country. If they don't, who will? Who will?
Right.
Certainly not us.
Right.
In none of the, if
we sure as hell would.
Right, well,
If we lost 27
yeah.
million. We've been pretending that we won that war since the war ended.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. If you Google headlines about the remembrance ceremony, none, zero mainstream Western headlines mention that the Russians had anything to do with liberating the camps. Zero, none, literally none. So, of course, they're going to say it. If they don't, who will? Who would? More than 27 million Soviet citizens were killed in what is known here as the Great Patriotic War. This change in emphasis hasn't gone unnoticed. Oh, no, God forbid. God forbid they should put the emphasis on the unfathomable sacrifice that they made to defeat Nazism. Nobody argues that there were millions of victims during the Second World War, Israel's ambassador to Moscow, Simone Halperin, tells me. But an industrial plan to kill, eliminate, erase from the face of the earth a race that was against the Jewish people. I think it is of critical importance to remember that the Holocaust was designed as the genocide of the Jewish people, which we just read you a quote 2 slides ago. Putin said exactly that.
Well,
he's not minimizing that. He's not dismissing that.
Well, not only that, the Holocaust Museum, their own archives talk about Operation Barbarossa and the genocidal intention of the campaign to the east. They intended this was Hitler's whole theory that they were in a struggle between the Slavic peoples and the Aryan peoples. He saw the end of the war as actually a loss of the Aryans to the Slavs in a Darwinian struggle to prove supremacy. He was ranting that they have proven themselves to be the stronger people. That was how he framed it. That if there were Slavs alive, they would have to be enslaved.
Right. Exactly. It is not because the Russian authorities do not want to speak about the Holocaust or the Jews, suggests historian and researcher Konstantin Pakalyak. The idea is about presenting Russians as victims, to feel that we are victims, victims of Western powers, victims in history. That is the core idea of this narrative. Well, is that not true in this case? Konstantin lives and works abroad. I mean, victims might be a little bit insulting to them since they made that sacrifice not as victims, but as warriors, and they won. And they defeated Nazism. And there's no doubt that war could not have been won without them.
Of course.
So acknowledging the sacrifice that they made and their ancestors who are no longer alive, their family trees who have much fewer branches on them than they should, were it not for the Nazi threat. 27 million people. 27 million people. And that was, in 1945 when there weren't as many people in the world. So that'd be, you account for the population spike. You're talking about a massive, an unfathomable sacrifice.
No, this is so suppressed. I did not know this. Look, I was into history, but I was more into ancient history. I was ahead of the curve. I was already thinking about Rome before TikTok. before it was a TikTok trend. I didn't know this until I was in my 20s.
Yep. That they lost all those men. Konstantin lives and works abroad. Back home, he has been declared a foreign agent, a label often used to punish critics of the Russian authorities. He argues that the narrative of Russia as victim has become especially strong since the start of Russia's war in Ukraine. If you are a victim, you cannot bear responsibility. Mr. Pakalyak says, who nowadays falls back on their own victimhood to absolve themselves of responsibility for their crimes? Who? There's a certain state.
I can't think of the.
I forget. We don't talk about them much, so it kind of escapes me at the moment. But maybe we'll think of it. Maybe it'll come up later in this slideshow.
Shrews.
Yeah, something. Yeah. Russian officials have not been invited back to Poland for the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz camp. This is the anniversary of liberation. We remember the victims, but we also celebrate freedom. The director of the Auschwitz Museum, I'm not even going to attempt that name, wrote last September. It is hard to imagine the presence of Russia. It would just be insulting to try and say that name. I would just end up insulting the guy.
Piotr Sawinski.
Piotr Sawinski. I avoided
we run into much harder names than that, man.
All right. Well, you took a shot. So it's hard to imagine the presence of Russia, which clearly does not understand the value of freedom. Unlike the Israelis, who understand the value of freedom, and the Ukrainian government, which surely understands the value of freedom. That's why they, cracked down on churches, suspended elections until after wartime, of course. The decision not to extend an invitation to Moscow has been condemned by one of Russia's most influential Jewish leaders. Not inviting Russia is offensive to the memory of the liberators and their contribution to the victory over fascism, Rabbi Alexander Baroda, president of the Federation of Jewish Communities of Russia, said at a press conference recently in Moscow. It is a very bad sign because memory is important and there are common values that help defeat fascism. Despite their differences, the countries of the anti-Hitler coalition, different political systems and ideologies, managed to unite for a common victory. Meanwhile, Jewish groups here are doing what they can to remind Russians of the past so that it is never repeated. Well, talk about reminding of crimes to the past and linking them to crimes of the present. I have to refer you to this statement by Putin in December of 2023. The Gaza Strip is now the largest children's cemetery in the world. Once again, connecting these things together.
Вернемся, я так понимаю, еще к ситуации, связанной с украинским кризисом. Но и вы, и все здесь присутствующие, и во всем мире видят. Посмотрите на специальную военную операцию и то, что в Газе происходит. И почувствуйте разницу. Но ничего подобного в Украине нет. Значит, вы упомянули о гибели тысяч детей и женщин. Генеральный секретарь Организации Объединенных Наций назвал сегодняшний сектор Газа самым большим кладбищем детей в мире.
Citing the UN Secretary General has called today's Gaza Strip the largest children's cemetery in the world.
Это такая оценка о многом говорит.
This assessment says a lot. Yes, surely it does. So let's compare. Invitees to the party that has been uninvited. This is as of February 2nd, 2024. So forgive me, these numbers are dated, but the point remains the same here. Death toll from Gaza almost triples Ukraine, the civilian death toll. Look at the children killed in Gaza through February 2nd, 2024. 13,000 children killed in Ukraine at that point after almost 2 full years of war, 560 plus. So you want to compare side by side the crimes of these states, and look,
and this is 119 days of Gaza and 709 days of Ukraine.
Exactly. Day 119 verse 709. Look at that difference, particularly, of course, in the child death count.
Yeah.
And, I have to say, because I know you get this, not from our audience now. I think you guys understand this well enough. I don't support an invasion. I've always supported peace between Russia and Ukraine. I don't root for Russia to pummel Ukraine. I root for a peace deal, which is why I said the war should have been prevented with a peace deal before it ever got started.
Right.
So I don't support Russia's military goals. I think their diplomatic goals were reasonable to the point where they should have been agreed to before the war started, because I don't want war with Ukraine. I don't mean the Ukrainian people harm. I actually value the lives of the Ukrainian people much more than the Ukraine hawks in Congress and in lib world and, amongst the neocon GOPers. So just want to make that point, obviously. But look at the culpability here. Look at the twisty turvy logic of the world right now, where the liberators of the camps are disinvited because they're at war with a state that, as has been pointed out, had a Nazi problem, according to the Democratic Party, up until apparently 2021. And so that just kind of shows you the state of the world. You really can't get a better sense of how crazy things are than all of those factors coming into focus on Holocaust Remembrance Day.
John Lennon said it a long time ago. It's a very famous interview he did where he said, I've always known it, but I couldn't say it this way until I became an adult. But I always knew, even as a child, the world is run by insane people for insane ends.
Yes. Yep. And boy, does that make itself known right there. Kit's Corner, bad boys, what are you going to do when the doc's on you? Thank you. Yes. China Shill, Steven Seagal had a show where he was working with cops. There you go. Thank you, China Shill. Dr. Phil is made entirely of ham, says Stoop Sign. Thank you very much. Reminds me of grumpy old men. To make it more dystopian, they should have Oprah beside them in a jacket. Yes, thank you. Appreciate that. China Shill says, killer show today, guys. Yes, Russell, good riddance to that. Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Thank you, China Shill. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll go to some super chats here. Sparky, Seagal was like a sheriff deputy reservist or something like that for some lame reality show, I think. Sort of like Elvis may have technically been a cop or honorary DEA agent, but not as cool. That's right. Virtuoso, don't mind me. I'm just waiting for Chinese 3D printing companies to crash the U.S. housing market. Thank you, Virtuoso. Yes. Sparky doesn't face in the crowd star kindly upright sheriff Andy Griffith.
It sure does. And he's, it's like a revelation if you've never seen him in anything like that. He's great in that movie.
Yeah. So that'll be a fun time tomorrow, 7 p.m.
Definitely check it out. That's a really, really good movie, and it speaks so much to the moment. You're going to be amazed how many parallels there are to what they were concerned about at that time.
Salamander Fry says, hey, you guys are all right. You're all right too, Salamander Fry. Aspen Fallen, thanks for the donation, says nobody ever thanks Wolverine for helping Cap free the concentration camps. Rude. Just because he has forks for hands doesn't make him any less of a hero. That's right.
Well, that's it. I'd be same thing with Edward Scissorhands. He's still on the list. He has to go door to door introducing himself whenever he moves to a new neighborhood.
Right. The Peopled Infinite, thanks for the $5. My favorite pod, DD, Doug Funny and his neighbor, Mr. Dink, with the same laugh and everything. Just kidding, guys. Love you. Stay honest and funny. Thank you, Peopled Infinite.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much. Furrows Queen says, China Shill got his segment. I got mine yesterday with Rand Paul. What a treat. Thank you, Furrows Queen. All right, folks, we have one more for you for the road. Yesterday was International Holocaust Remembrance Day, and so I want to pull from the vault one of my favorite clips. Many of you have likely seen this before, but Zay Squirrel tweets, today's the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz concentration camp by the Red Army. Here's Norman Finkelstein, whose father was liberated from Auschwitz, responding to the vile attempts to hijack and weaponize it by Zionists to launder their genocidal depravity. So here's Norman Finkelstein shutting down some Zionist students who tried to, as the tweet mentions here, hijack the lessons of the Holocaust for their ends. He's not having it. He's not having it. This is one of the great clips that we've seen emerge over this past year. So here's Norm Finkelstein.
Respect that anymore. I really don't. I don't like and I don't respect the crocodile tears the crocodile tears. No. I'm sorry, folks. Allow me to finish and allow me to finish. Listen, sir. Allow me to finish. Allow me to finish. Sir. I don't like to play before an audience the Holocaust card. But since now I feel compelled to. My late father was in Auschwitz. My late mother, please shut up.
Had it back then, still got it now.
My late father was in Auschwitz. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on my father's side,
the Jews did not take arms against the Germans.
My late father was in Auschwitz concentration camp. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on both sides was exterminated. Both of my parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And it's precisely and exactly because of the lessons my parents taught me and my two siblings that I will not be silent when Israel commits its crimes against the Palestinians. And I consider nothing more despicable than to use their suffering and their martyrdom to try to justify the torture, the brutalization, the demolition of homes that Israel daily commits against the Palestinians. So I refuse any longer to be intimidated or browbeaten by the tears. If you had any heart in you, you would be crying for the Palestinians.
Gives me chills every time. Really does.
You see what happens, Larry, when you fuck a stranger in the ass?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the GOAT right there. That gives me chills every time. And, there's a guy who gave his life to this issue. He gave his life to this issue. He was ruined for this,
Yep.
So just thought we should play that. I mean, that speaks for itself. That is absolute fire.
Yeah, that.
Bless you.
That was one of his greatest moments, and yeah, man, he's one of the best that we have in this space. Because as he points out there, what are you gonna say to him? What are you gonna say to him? That he doesn't have a connection to those things? That's why they hate him so much.
Right. They hate him because he carries that pain with him. You could tell it whenever you talk to him that he carries that pain with him. And
that cry bully they kept cutting to.
Right. Yeah, the cry bully they keep cutting to. Like, what are you gonna fucking tell me that you feel it more than him? Like he carries that tragedy with him. And this is, like I said, just like the Holocaust survivor who we showed in the last segment, the best examples of Jews and Judaism that I could see is people who carry that pain with them and channel it in ways that they channel it, as opposed to taking that pain and twisting it into some psychotic, violent, genocidal fervor, which is what the Israeli Zionists have done.
Right.
To me, the best tradition of Judaism is to carry it the way Norm does, and the way Jews who speak out against the horrible abuse of the Palestinians have done for decades. And like I said, this guy, he really gave his life to this issue.
Yeah.
And he still does. He still speaks out about it. And he's a great guy. We've interviewed him, 3-4 times in total? Twice here, once on Jimmy, so maybe 3 times. Great sense of humor, just a really, really good person. But, he really brings the emotional weight of this everywhere he goes. And that at the end there, when he just says, there's nothing more despicable.
More despicable than to use their suffering and their martyrdom to try to justify the torture, the brutalization, the demolition of homes that Israel daily commits against the Palestinians. So I refuse any longer to be intimidated or browbeaten by the tears. If you had any heart in you, you would be crying for the Palestinians.
It's
You
just
go, Norm.
flawless.
You
That
go.
is Yep. And it's just absolutely flawless. All right. We are going to close the lights here, but not before we hear some last words from you fine people in the chat. Let's take some super chats and Rumble rants. EJ, imagine people who fight back recover better from trauma than people who are rescued. They don't feel they won. Thank you, Eileen. The USSR was initially allied with Nazi Germany, for the record. Elon hires Daryl Cooper as his
they're going to wind up making him head of Department of Education at the rate we're going.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
He'd fit right in with that crew.
He would. When's her confirmation hearing? McMahon, right? The wrestler's wife. Yeah, when's her? I want to see that.
Don't know.
Bernie should come in with a chair, a folding chair.
Yeah.
I don't understand with all the money Larry Ellison has that he tells his plastic surgeon to make him look like Mickey Rourke. Yeah, he does look like Mickey Rourke.
That's a good call.
Good call, indeed. You're going to see Bloodsport 5, Eric Husso. Thank you for that. Norm is definitely the cleanup hitter for the White Hats. Thank you, Hillary Hinton. Appreciate that. All right, what do we got here? Sparky says, that's it, Keaton. Defend Ukrainian Nazis. Oh, stop, Sparky. Stop busting my balls. I didn't defend the Ukrainian Nazis. I'm too tired to argue with you. All right? You wore me out, Sparky. You win. You win. DD, too cool Jays to school you. Appreciate your info. Thank you. Sparky, if I recall, Andy Griffith played against his ultimate type of face in the crowd, which was made before he had a type. He was known for his comedic role in the play and movie No Time for Sergeants. Thank you, Sparky. That's much nicer. That's much friendlier than your previous super chat. Appreciate that.
You'll see. If you come for the movie, anyone who hasn't seen it, he is amazing in that movie.
All right. Well, if you want to join us for Film Club night tomorrow, go to dodissidents.locals.com and sign up. If you're watching on Rumble, click that join button underneath the screen and sign up. It's just $5 a month. You get loads of perks. We just did a patron show yesterday. We're going to schedule them at regular interviews starting in February. That was one of our New Year's resolutions, to schedule them at regular intervals, like bi-weekly. But when we were hosting the Jimmy Dore show, we were just too slammed the first 2 weeks. We literally did not have a free night to do it. But those will be scheduled at more regular.
We're going to make it much more
forward.
regular.
Yes, exactly. So it'll be easier for you guys.
We got one last one from China Shell there.
Yep, I see. So it'll be easier to fit that into your schedule. The China Shell, it was a non-aggression pact, not an alliance. You moron. There's a difference, especially when none of the allies wanted to fight the Nazis. Damn, I told you, China Shell really got pumped up with that second segment.
He's very excited. I'm starting to think China Shell is actually Xi.
yeah. Trying to show he certainly pays us like he's G. $1 at a time. Ha ha, kidding, China Shill. Love you, China Shill. Just messing with you. Yes, no, China Shill's been in a mood, rightfully so. I mean, look, he's entitled, man. I mean, this is the day for that, if any.
No.
All right, folks. Hey, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate you all. Thanks for spending this afternoon with us. Always grateful. Always a pleasure. Patrons, we'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. Thursday's show will be at 11 a.m. 11 a.m. because I had a doctor's appointment scheduled for my infant for 2 o'clock. We scheduled that before we switched from morning to afternoon show. So we got to push the Thursday show up an hour. So we'll see you patrons tomorrow at 7 p.m. Everybody else, 11 a.m. for what is technically a Morning Dew episode on Thursday. Until then, thanks for today. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.